us all, but it's how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is if you get back up when you fall. You gotta get up. Failure happens to us all, but this is how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is will you get back up when you fall. You better get up. You gotta get up. You gotta get up. I need you to get up. Get up. You witnessing a champ in the making, fueled by your passion for greatness. Yeah, but adversity and bad situations meet us in the middle of the paths that we taking. But it's what you do after that makes men. Will you quit or will you stand up and face it? Tell me, do you have what it takes to swing back when this life asks for the fade? Can you tell me you'll adapt to the change when a punch lands and it puts you flat on your face? After you wake, will you stand up and say, get mad, hit back, lit match to the flames? Failure happens to us all, but it's how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is if you get back up when you fall. You gotta get up. Failure happens to us all, but this is how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is will you get back up when you fall. You better get up. You gotta get up. You gotta get up. I need you to get up. Get up. take you back. Spitting facts, you gotta live with that. Who got it? Who want it? No problem. We mob it. Who got it? Who want it? No problem. We mob it. Belly of the beast. There were days where I barely had sleep, but I had to work more than competition. I can't live like the opposition. Living everything I dreamed of, doing everything you think of. The way I work, I'm on the brink of doing everything you dreamed of. Only aim for perfection, ain't no half stepping. I'm gonna take you back, spitting facts, you gotta live with that. Who got it? Who want it? No problem. We mob it. In the city, plenty havoc causing. Do or die, it's either all or nothing. Best believe I'm leaving out with something. Anytime I got the crowd jumping, throwing reds, you know they fist pumping. I'm the king of dysfunction. What would you do if you had my life? Work like me, had them stripes. Would you go hard just to have that ice? Lot of dudes fail trying to have that price. In a yo, cooking about to add that spice. Nowadays, Failure happens to us all, but it's how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is if you get back up when you fall. You gotta get up. Failure happens to us all.
يلقى مكان فكالفين دامج وحاط على
فعل وبالمخطبوط العراق موجود معانا ليخلص مدفع تواجد الايسبورت
تكسر الوضع تاع اوبا حاليا على غرد لوحده بالصراط هذا الليل لم يكن في مكان مناسب. سيكتور يا سيكتور يا سيكتور يا سيكتور.
Welcome everyone here to the third week of action at, of course, the PMPL Arabia full split for the 2022 season. My name is Highland Wolf, and if you're just joining us, welcome and get ready for it is going to be a week of highly contested action where the stakes are even higher than ever for many of our teams. But if you are just tuning in and you do have a favorite team, be sure to let them know and let us know your support using the hashtag PMPL Arabia on YouTube, Facebook, and of course TikTok, and give us your own opinions on how these teams are doing in the competition. But it is not just me, however, casting, of course, today is once again joined by the lovely Monica. Monica, we have had what has been 2-3 days really of intense action on that last Super Weekend. Now, as we say, the stakes very much as high as they've ever been for these teams.
The stakes are as high as it's been, just like you said. We've had some that have done well consistently all throughout the weekend. That's a team like GEEKAY, right? But then we have some teams that, if it's any time to show up, it is going to be this final week, especially like the teams right at the bottom. We're talking about VISTA Gaming. They haven't made a single super weekend yet. So, I mean, this is their one and only chance left if they want to qualify for finals.
Yeah, it's a big, of course, mountain to climb for VISTA. But if you want to check out the format, as we say, if you've not joined us already before in the tournament here, Monica, well, we're in the weekdays where, of course, our 20 teams will be joining us all together once more and taking themselves into 5 groups. 4 groups will play every match, so that means 1 group will sit out for every game. We're going to play also 5 matches for today and tomorrow too. But it's a super weekend, Monica, where those points accumulate through all 3 of our super weekends, which, as we say, some of these teams still to accumulate more.
The super weekends, we just saw the second one finish up a couple of days ago, and this is going to be the third weekday, the third and last one actually. So the points are going to refresh, right? So everyone's starting at 0 for today and for tomorrow to attempt to qualify into that last super weekend. So they have to be top 16.
And
But
of course,
this is yes, of course. But it's just kind of a clean slate for everybody, right?
Yeah, and I think, of course, the finals there, of course, where these teams want to go, as we say, but the format here to continues into the calendar here, as we can see. Currently, week 3, it is the 4th of July, and of course, happy celebration days to you, Monica, over in, of course, the American side of the world, and we will be joining us through what will be 4 more days as well of action too, Monica, with Super Weekend 3 going to be without a rest day though from the 6th, 7th and 8th later this week.
Yeah, so if you hear some fireworks, that's probably on my
Exactly.
end. But of course, it could be a mini red zone
Oh yeah.
simulation, right, in game where some people just might be lobbing those grenades, you just hear them pop off. So basically, what you hear in game like that, that's what it's been for me all weekend with this July 4th weekend.
Yeah, of course, it continues this action. The finals later this month, though we will take a short break. But those money do not stop as first to 20th positions. The dollars are going to continue to climb for of all of these 20 teams, 2,500 a pop. But the $1,000 per winner chicken dinner going to be very crucial for all of these teams playing later in our final 15 Super Weekend games on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, as we say. The finals prize pool, though, on the right hand side, if you're wondering what that is for, is going to be for later, as we said, in July when we come back with our top 16 teams.
That $1,000 cash prize per chicken dinner in the Super Weekends. A team that's really capitalized on that one is going to be GEEKAY, of course, right? 5 chicken dinners found across the 2 Super Weekends so far. And then some of the other teams, we have a lot of goose eggs, right? They haven't got to participate in that, so this weekend will be their last chance to try to get that 1K prize money.
Yeah, and I mean, GEEKAY, of course, very high in the standings currently, and having those pole position 364 points, which is what they ended up after their second Super Weekend moniker, and very much above the rest of these teams, almost 100 points. Now, I'm expecting GEEKAY to show us that same dominance that they've had before, but we also worry because, Monica, as we were saying through that kind of first, second week, they may have also been revealing a few things to these other teams who still are fighting below.
A lot of the teams, they, what the time commitment that they spent playing in this tournament, that's just scratching the surface of how much mental and physical time and practice they do outside off the screens, right? They're playing in scrims, they're trying new things, they're watching back multiple times the VODs and the reviews and everything to see what are the other teams in the lobby doing, where are our mistakes, and maybe some potential mistakes that, hey, this team, when they drop, they're very split up. That's a potential weakness, right? We could, catch one of them off guard, take them out, and potentially debilitate them for the rest of the match.
Yeah, and of course, the rest of these teams, when we look down on that, I think overall standings, Monica, you have to also keep in mind that it is the likes of Major Pride, of also NASR, who were beginning to step up too in that previous weekend. And you see also the difference, crucially, between those teams, such as I think NASR, who play more for those placement points, Monica, whereas Major Pride also very high up in those standings, but play more towards the elimination point side. Is there a balance that we are looking for, though, from these teams as we take a look at them?
There's definitely a balance you need to have, right? You can't just have a team that's, hey, I'm so frag heavy to the point where I'm just too aggressively going after these engagements and then dying off a little
Yes.
bit too early, right? That's one extreme. The other extreme is we've seen some teams that, hey, we're just going to focus on placement until the last 5 minutes, right? And then you come in and you're not quite getting those eliminations. And we saw that from certain teams like Twisted Minds, right? They won the last 2 matches of Super Weekend, but they only won them with 8, 10 eliminations. It's not quite a lot compared to some teams that like GEEKAY, they can finish out a game at 18 eliminations, POWR with 20 eliminations. That's the perfect kind of balance, the best level of high eliminations and high placement.
And of course, CONQUEROR Iraq, VISTA Gaming, 90th Minute, and OOREDOO Thunders joining us back from their excursion of 3-day break from the Super Weekend after not qualifying. So it is very important that all 4 of these teams qualify, but also important, I think, that we talk about the other teams again. The onus is on them. FALCONS, CONQUEROR, Esports, SKYROCKET, and also VISTA once more. These teams all need to make sure that they have the opportunity to get into that Super Weekend. Now, we talk about the average points that these teams need to make. Well, you make those over roughly 2 Super Weekends, and both for all of these teams, should I say, have missed at least 1 Super Weekend so far. So they will be lacking when it comes to the qualification potential versus these other teams for the finals.
We saw CONQUEROR Iraq, OOREDOO Thunders in 90th minute not make the last Super Weekend. And if the patterns of Falcon, like SKYROCKET occurred from the first weekend can apply to these ones, it's where those 3 didn't qualify the first Super Weekend, came back guns a-blazing, each of them winning a chicken dinner right off. Actually, in the week play, I think 2 of them actually won chicken dinners. They all qualified. And then starting into the Super Weekend, they all won a chicken dinner that first day. So really just, I think, took that break, mentally prepared, fixed everything, and then came out and really showed a lot for it. If the teams like CONQUEROR, Rito Thunder, 90th Minute can do the same thing, where maybe they had, a nice refresh, they could do really, really well this week.
Yeah, I think it is, of course, as we say, the pressure though on these teams is going to be very immense, and the psychological aspect of that, Monica, being that, as we said, it's a 5-day straight week this time around, so there is no break on the Wednesday, and that's certainly going to create a lot of pressure for those teams, as we say, need to qualify. And I think particularly for those teams lower on those standings, and we look towards those squads, not just VISTA, but I think also CONQUEROR, and they're also SKYROCKET, who didn't have, I think, as great a performance as you mentioned, like FALCONS, so also need to step up once more.
Falcons, they had 125 points in this last weekend, and they were able to ascend just actually beyond some of the teams that were at the very, very bottom of these Super Weekends, despite making 2 weekends. I want to say it was the only one, right? Well, Falcons, they know how to win out matches, right? They got 1 chicken dinner this past weekend, but they got it with 15 eliminations. So they're not like one of those teams that, hey, we're just gonna passively get the chicken dinner with just very few eliminations. They know how to play that well. They just need to find their consistency, be able to do that multiple times.
And of course, when we talk towards VISTA, well, they have a lot of pressure on their hands, as we said, but we get to take a little bit of an inside look at this team. I'm going to talk to Trofka from the VISTA crew and what their thoughts are coming into this final week.
And hello, Trofka from Team VISTA Gaming. Welcome to the PMPL, and how are you feeling?
Yeah, hello, I'm feeling good. Hi everyone. Yeah, let's go start.
Yeah, sure. So how do you feel going into the PMPL? What kind of expectations do you have?
My team and I are in the United Arab Emirates, and everyone has passed the acclimatization stage and is already training and prepare for the PMPL. So everyone is fine. You were ready.
You mentioned about preparations. What kind of preparations did you have for the PMPL?
We do not single out any teams. We just prepare for PMPL just like we prepare for it in the CIS region. I can't say more. It's a confidential information.
Sure.
Yeah.
But what do you think of being an CIS team playing against European teams? So what are the advantages or disadvantages that could occur with your team?
This is a big plus for us because the road to the big official esports for these teams have disappeared, and we are forced to move to other regions. It's only advantages for us.
Welcome back. We are just joining back through from Trofka from VISTA Gaming, telling us their thoughts on their current standings on the tournament. Monica, I think though a lot of pressure on VISTA, of course, because they are the only team not qualified through the first 2 Super Weekends.
Everyone else has that momentum, right? They played a lot of the league play, they played a lot of the Super Weekends, and then VISTA, yeah, they've literally played 4 out of all the days that we've seen in this tournament so far of the last 2 week plays. So they're, I don't know. We talk about breaks are good to refresh and get ready, but they've had way too much off time, I would say.
Yeah, they need to wake up because as we check out those overall standings, the rest of these teams, Monica, they are far ahead of the polls compared to them. 364 points, as we said, for GEEKAY position in that poll spot.
7 chicken dinners found. I mean, they are, what is that, like almost 100-point difference between GEEKAY and NIGMA Galaxy. So they're just, confidence at an all-time high. unless they completely throw this next weekend, or if they potentially don't qualify, and that might be a strategy that some of the teams lower, like NIGMA Galaxy. Hey,
Right.
they're way apart. If we can somehow keep them out of this next Super Weekend, that would be our chance to climb up and take that first place position.
I mean, right, GEEKAY, they look absolutely on fire right now. NIGMA, though, also improving, has to be said, as well as NASR Major Pride doing the work. Whereas, actually, on the other hand, Twisted Minds now pushed out of that top position, or the top two, down to 5th position, 249 points. And they got a lot less so from that second Super Weekend, only 96 points compared to their previous result of 153, Monica.
Yeah, and the last two matches this last weekend, they got 48 points out of those 96 you just said, right? So 50% of their entire weekend scores were just in those last two matches that they got those chicken dinners. But looking at this bottom second half, we saw some of those teams that didn't make this past Super Weekend, like OOREDOO Thunders, like Conquer Iraq, falling down, right? OOREDOO Thunders, they started before this last weekend in, what, 3rd? Something like that, and then have now fallen to 13th.
Right, and I think also when you look towards teams like POWR, YALLA continuing their surprise climb, we could say, coming through to that second Super Weekend. But I think from OOREDOO down, those final 4 teams really do have a lot of pressure on them, because they all need to make through that position to the Super Weekend alongside these final 3 teams, along also VISTA 2, who aren't here on the standings. So the bottom 8 is who all need to qualify, and who missed a Super Weekend so far. If they don't qualify, we are looking at past standings, Monica, of about kind of 160 points or so for the potential space to qualify. That's what I'm worried about them not making. And to make that, though, they will need to pick up their energy, as we say, and get on board with the Monster Energy, our official energy drinks partner for the PMPL Arabia. And maybe that's their secret recipe that they are requiring.
Yeah, to wake up a little bit, Vista Gaming especially is going to need a couple cases of those to really wake up and try to get as many points as possible.
Yeah, and as of course we keep in mind our 5 maps that we've got today here to Monica from Erangel, and 3 of those versus our 2 Miramars that we will be having as we are continuing to load through our first Erangel match here. And keep in mind that it is the first 4 groups that will play. A reminder that yes, one group will sit out through all of our 5 games, including then Group A at the end of today, going to miss out that final match as we jump on board, though, regardless, Monica, to that first game of Erangel, as we say, and the pressure is at its highest point, as we said.
Pressure is about to erupt and boil over the pot. GEEKAY, we've seen them have so much success in Erangel, right? Majority of their Erangel matches from this past Super Weekend were won by GEEKAY. But like we kind of touched on before, maybe that's they're getting a lot of attention, right, from these teams because they're doing so well. And is that attention going to come and bite them in the butt?
And here, a playing path of it comes through from kind of the side that GEEKAY want to sort of control here. So it will be a kind of alright playing path for the most part for these teams. There is a little bit of an issue coming through towards that more eastern side because the playing path is more westerly too, Monica. So it's places around that mansion, that Stalber side for RTG as well, will also be gaining another issue. I think on the other hand, though, as we said, these teams all going to have a position, however, that for the meantime in phase 1 will at least keep them up for now.
We have it pretty down in the central area, right? We have Road to Glory on their way to Yasnaya, of course, without FALCONS going there, and we've seen Road to Glory make their way there, kind of being that scavenger team when there isn't anyone going there. We have it, though. This time it's kind of down in that GEEKAY. We've seen these circles before, Highland Wolf, right? And POWR, we have these kind of teams that are really familiar with this area, of course, kind of being right in their backyard, that they can just quickly loot, set up, and then have a very, very central position where everyone else is still kind of looting in and kind of trying to find an edge into the circle.
And this bottom half of really a first phase zone, very complementary to, of course, that first phase. So the playing paths are not going to be too much of an issue. Is a lot of these teams still going to be very much inside of that first phase for the meantime. The other real issue that I'm thinking, though, again, comes towards that phase 2, that phase 3 point when these teams are going to begin rotating, Monica. And that's when we start to see those squads kind of get into a bit of a skirmish, particularly around that more Pachinki side when they're coming in for the mainland.
G side also a very central position, but we've seen NIGMA Galaxy come into Pachinki, and somehow they kind of struggle with these central zones because they stay in Pachinki forever, right? Taking an extended vacation into their city or homecation, right? They don't really go anywhere. And then they're kind of playing the edge game from a central position like Pachinki, allowing teams to rotate right past them that were further onto the edges. And then they get caught like off rotation, off guard. We've seen them losing one or many more than that way too early in the match and just not performing how we need them to perform.
And these teams who, as we say, need to perform the bottom 8 currently in the standings. So going through from OOREDOO down towards kind of those teams like VISTA who still need to qualify, like also Cur12 who only have had these one super weekend opportunities for those squads. That's really, as we say, these squads that need to make it further into the tournament. And I think also, as we said, not only, of course, the requirement of it, but also leading into the pressure, because all of these teams who are at the lower end of the standings, some of them do tend to contest each other, particularly on these 2 maps of Erangel and Miramar. And at least on the other hand of that, though, squads who did struggle in that second week and now really need to get back into the super weekend, like CONQUEROR, who didn't have the opportunity of Miramar as one of their core maps to the team, will at least now be able to have that opportunity once more.
I like how you pointed that out because we've already identified CONQUEROR and OOREDOO Thunder as very, very strong in Miramar, right? And now the map lineup for today is very similar to that first weekend that both of those teams were able to qualify into that first super weekend because we had so much Miramar going around, but they weren't able to qualify from this last weekend, right? Because there was 0 Miramar in that league play, just a lot of Erangel and Sandhawk. So this could be, you know, really what they want, having a map that they're very strong on to add on those points to try to get into this next weekend.
And of course, not only the points required for those teams at the bottom, but the points required for the top teams, because keep in mind, there is still 15 grand up for grabs for all of these scores coming into the Super Weekend through the progression from these first 2 league days. And I think also you see to the likes of GEEKAY, who, yes, of course, they're going to inevitably be qualified for the finals, Monica. Yeah. There's no real issue at all of teams being able to knock them out. But the money side of it, and we've said we've already seen 7 victories so far. I don't know what I'm looking at right now, but it is beautiful, quite frankly. And Rad Delhap, oh, wouldn't it have been funny if his teammate knocked him down after? That would have been beautiful.
This is just, I think they have a spectator specialist just watching, camping all the vehicle spawns in the map and just, hey, if anyone gets in a vehicle and does something funny, we're
makes me want to get up
onto this one
and dance myself. I mean, if I wouldn't make like such a noise and such a ruckus and probably knock my green screen off behind me against my back wall, then yeah, sure, I'd get up.
I like it. It was getting around. The coupe usually has only 2 seats, and you know, instead of playing Uber and taxing people around, it's like, hey, just start emoting on the hood, and we'll go find another vehicle. So that's, you know, 200 IQ play.
And now they did, and continuing to make their rotations as all of these teams through our current first phase. And I think realistically that, as we said, the Pachinki side going to be that part of contention for a lot of these teams. And as you see a lot of these squads beginning to rotate up the northern side as well, we had to keep in mind that the likes of 4K did change up their location this time. So they dropped up against that more Severity side and coming down in towards those Pachinki bridges. And I think this is going to be something, a change for R8 to potentially contest versus, and 4K trying to also change up their strategies in amongst the idea that maybe they don't need to qualify in terms of they should still make it through as one of these teams into the finals, but still looking to not only get their money, but we also have to remember, Monica, that if a team who is already essentially qualified into the finals qualifies into the Super Weekend this week, they're also removing one of those spots from the teams who do need to get those points.
4K did get a little bit of money this past weekend, right? They got 1 chicken dinner and a Miramar. Only 7 eliminations found, though. So one of those lower numbers, so kind of that, hey, we're not super confident that we can win the match, so we're going to stay so passive to the point where all the fights are erupting around us, and then we're just going to come in the last second and just kind of steamroll through everybody and just get those 7 eliminations. 4K, the first week, they just barely, I believe it was in 16th position, qualified into Super Weekend, and then just came off the bat, got a chicken dinner or 2, and started the weekend off really, really strong. But just switching gears, though, POWR, we finally see our first bit of action, Highland Wolf. That's going to be POWR taking eliminations for themselves.
In POWR, taking at least that first blood of the tournament, and it will unfortunately be 90th minute, losing one of their players, which is crucial because 90th minute, as we said, one of these teams, Monaco, who need to make that qualification further in. Now, the rest of these bridges going to be a point of teams getting into the second phase zone is OOREDOO rotating through that more western south bridge side, so won't have to worry too much because, as we said, teams like Triple, who will, yes, be playing in this game, have already moved away from this location, and there's good scouting by OOREDOO, again, to kind of move towards that South Island as a secondary spot for them, because that other alternative where they want to go to that more west, eastern side, should I say, just wasn't available to them, and it makes it a much more efficient path for OOREDOO coming in through that first phase and into the second.
I'm glad they're able to get across this bridge without any sort of contention from 90th minute, right? They have one that drops on that southern, kind of western Sovnaka island part. They're able to just get through. They're able to just come up right behind Team Conqueror. So their next rotation is going to be a little bit difficult one because you see Conqueror being a roadblock absolutely. Circle's just going to center up one more time right over the GEEKAY area again. So POWR, GEEKAY, very delighted with type of circle. Look how much northern space is in this circle. But unfortunately, Highland Wolf, we have a lot of teams about to rotate right on top of each other.
A lot of teams, as you said, in this phase 2 beginning to potentially position in towards the beginnings of a fight. Don't expect too much, though. I think that these teams, over the course of the tournament, Monaco have been very passive and haven't really looked to contest each other on this second phase. It's been much more controlled and focusing on a position for themselves rather than skirmishes. And later then requiring, I think, what they want is that good position, phase 3, phase 4, to turn into a better positional fight for them, which is what you really want teams to look forward to, which is why even around those phase 3, 4 marks, teams aren't making these big moves. They aren't making those big rotations because they've already found a central position for themselves, which they think is favorable.
This is definitely on the flip side of what we saw the first weekends, right? This, what you just described, is a little bit more, I would say, higher intelligence, higher, giving your team a little bit more of a chance to set up for that late game. Versus the first week, we saw a lot of teams contesting against each other in cities or stopping and rotating, right? Just catching a lot of people off guard, right? Like at this point in the match, we would have probably 10 players out already, right? Just teams contesting each other. So here we're seeing a little less action, but that's just setting themselves up so we're able to see, like we saw this past weekend, a lot of like 4v4s in the very last kind of 3 minutes of a match. Major Pride, though, coming in from the South Georgia Pole area. So this is a team that we've said is super kind of frag heavy, right? And they're coming in just on the on that end. So they just, I mean, we want to see a little bit more placement points from them, but keeping that same level of elimination and fragging.
Right, and exactly. I think that these teams for now, as we said, looking to be a bit more aggressive, I think, for some. I actually think that the overall positional play, the teams like NASR, as we can see currently, who play more towards that positioning, still very crucial for them. And I think that NASR has been one of those better teams, though, throughout the tournament, who have had more control in terms of those setting up a good positions for those good team fights. Where NASR, I think, struggle has been, though, later rotations into converting those into the fights themselves. And I think that definitely shows, as we said, as NASR, one of those teams, yes, but very much lower in the elimination points than the rest of the top 5 overall.
Yeah, this past weekend they got a chicken dinner with 9 eliminations, another chicken dinner with only 5, right? So that's barely adding on any sort of points from those elims, and it just really relying on those 15 points in chicken dinner. So NASR, another team, I guess we would say NASR and Major Pride are kind of on the two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right, and exactly, and it's interesting that Major Pride as well had such a rise in terms of their position, because I think Major have been a very controlled team in one hand, yes, but they were focused around those eliminations, and you see that a lot, not just from, I think, Major Pride, but when you look towards teams high up in those standings, like NIGMA, and also then towards even GEEKAY particularly, you see not only the control of the eliminations, but the placement points as well, and I think that's also why we've seen so many games through from GEEKAY themselves, because they have had those controlling positions where they always seem to find that backdoor access into the fights or to that third party where they can find an excellent spot to pick off teams and players in those kind of moments. And in a lot of their elimination points, in about those last 5 minutes, is regardless of these first initial minutes of the game, Triple already finding Power for now, walking to eliminations, sent into the pockets of Triple. As Power already on the retreat, and I believe this should be the end of the engagement for Triple, but Power not out of the woods yet, as they did rotate extremely close now into the rest of NIGMA, but will at least grab one elimination from a rogue position.
I think Power, even though they should do really, really well on GAKA, they keep spreading themselves out a little bit too far. Triple Esports, though, oh, another one finding his way into the grave, and it's going to be OOREDOO Thunders this time to capitalize on Triple Esports. So Triple Esports originally was putting the pressure onto Power, and then all of a sudden OOREDOO Thunder is coming in. But, I mean, the action's not over yet, and this time it's Curd12 to crash up onto the side. Smoker getting a knock, almost getting a knock, actually, on this northern side.
And all of the OOREDOO members kaput by Curd12, and it was a crucial fight for both, but Curd12's keeping themselves alive with their eliminations in tow, but they are, of course, down towards that south side, and it's a very risky position overall for them, because there are going to be a lot of these teams still rotating, keep in mind, from that more eastern end of Pochinki. There's about 4 or 5 teams that need to make that next rotation move forward, and a lot of them are going to look for those flanking sides down towards the south, judging by the fact that that north end of the zone is naturally going to be particularly contested by R8 from Everest coming into the observatory tower, but also from those teams like 4K who take up those extra spots by their, remember, new rotation they made on that northern side too.
It was when these teams come so far outside the circle, they're coming in all 4 together, just like SKYROCKET is doing here, trying to come up and take this compound, actually coming in the same area at the same time as R8 and Highland Wolf. All of a sudden, we're down to only 51 players in this lobby.
And very fast series of eliminations for R8 as well, catching out SKYROCKET on the rotation, the last one coming through. In trying, I believe, here to confirm, I think, a position for themselves, but it seems very forced by SKYROCKET because they want to, yes, find a position here, but R8 are actually fortunate for the side of SKYROCKET that they didn't have more players close together to engage further on that initial knock that they had, because otherwise SKYROCKET definitely could have been in a world where R8 could have easily pushed off that initial knock, and R8 would have likely taken that win.
These teams that are already in the GAKA era, they need to recognize, like Power should have, that these teams coming way far outside the circle that don't have information of where players are at, they're going to be diving into these compounds as a 4-man squad. And we saw that where Power suddenly had a full 4-man team of Triple Esports come up, right, and take half their team. And then right off the back, a full 4-man team of, was it OOREDOO Thunder that time around, came and crashed up on there. And then a full 4-man team of Curd12. So it's just, you have to brace for impact, and I think Power is getting caught way off guard because they're still holding this big massive split where they can't help each other, and they're only down to 2 players left.
In GAKA, it goes away from the main points but in towards the closeness of that eastern shift, and it's a big shift indeed here, Monica, because a lot of those teams who were rotating in from the east were struggling, will help them a lot, but those squads on the western side who already established a position now need to relocate their position, but there's nowhere really to go because the rest of these teams, as we say on the east, have already taken up those new spots.
Yeah, CONQUEROR that came in just a little bit from that western bridge area, Curd 12, though, still coming off from wiping out the likes of OOREDOO Thunder. 4 players actually up still. We saw that kind of drive-by over here by R8 as he's just driving as fast as he can. Road to glory. They have a great compound, but it's not going to allow them much time left as he is knocked and found and flushed. Actually by Twisted Minds this time around.
Yeah, I mean, R8 they're just trying to find a position for their squad. They are very much out of this zone with that next shift in. Done a lot of scouting, done a lot of work for the team, but they have now lost a player overall. So still remains the problem of trying to get into the zone. However, it does make a more informed decision now for the rest of those R8 members. So sacrifice, yes, but worth it, probably.
90th minute. 3 of them left after losing 1 at the very beginning to POWR. They haven't found a lot of success in getting in right on the back of 4K on that northwestern side. So they're going to come down a little bit further south. This is very the infamous area, right? We saw so many of those teams fight. And Curd 12, they've identified. They've heard the footsteps. They've heard the vehicles. And now Shido's, I mean, he's their strongest fragger, right? You cannot afford to lose him here as he does get put down onto his knees. The rest of Curd 12 need to somehow lend him a hand.
In 90th minute, grab at least a 1 for now. They grab a position, more importantly here, closer towards that lower entrance of the zone. Now they need to continue to move forward. The rest of Curd 12 also have now already found their own position in the zone too, so will be able to stabilize for the meantime. But as you can see, the main portion of GEEKAY here is extremely flat. There's not that much terrain to go off of, and as you make those rotations, you can be punished. Conqueror will only find that out too easy, as so do 90th minute. The second going down for them is a 2 struggle to find their position inside. Tam under fire is the last.
Definitely the best kind of situation for Curd 12, right? They had 90th minute rotate all the way around into Conqueror and having the fight there. And you saw them pick off a couple of those eliminations that they just need to revive one of their teammates, get back up, and hopefully collect up on some of these elims out into the blue zone. Another 90th minute player does get flushed out, though, as they turn their attentions back onto Conqueror. But the circle has now gone right back into the center, right in the chopsticks area. So all 3 of these teams, they need to rotate, and they need to rotate now. I'm
expecting a lot of those teams to dive into the chopsticks to avoid what is going to be an extremely flat zone as 90th minute. Only going to get blown up by the faces of Curd 12. But as we said, those teams need to rush in now. I think for the rest of NASR, though, they've got an excellent position inside of those chopsticks. So it's now down to NASR to make sure they defend this position, as we say. If you already see the members of GEEKAY, you see potentially more like Twisted Minds and these southern more teams going to need to maybe find a position there.
NIGMA, Galaxy, one of those really top teams that we've seen them just completely dominate the lobbies, but have somehow passed the torch onto GEEKAY this time, right? Now they're trailing on their tailcoats in 2nd place in the overalls from Super Weekend. They still have to get in. Has lost Raouf at this point now in Curd 12. They're still trying to cut themselves a slice of this circle, but have had Conquer now rotate in front of them, and they're going to be in the advantageous spot to prevent Curd 12 from keeping to get on any further in.
And Curd 12 continuing to struggle here as Conqueror will at least lose 1 for the meantime. It makes it a 1-for-1 trade. Conqueror in amongst the fight versus Mad, but Mad finding the shots, but not enough, as they will fall to the hands there of that third party. Now, RTG as well, finding 1, as well as Pride, as all of inside that main GEEKAY and the chopsticks compound itself. Major Pride struggling to solidify their own position versus NASR's home.
Maybe too many teams in one spot, though, as Pride, yeah, they're trying to clear out NASR, but Pride, I mean, he's got the MK14, that gun, it kicks like a horse and is just so unnecessarily loud, but they've been able to find the airdrops, really replenish their item, though we're seeing so many teams fall, especially with how congested this western side is, and it's just going to be these teams dwindling their numbers, while the teams over on the eastern side, more in the open, are going to have the stronger numbers going into the late game.
And NASR as well, who tried to split their attention between the chopsticks and that compound, will be punished by the full force of Major. But Miracle stepping up, finds that crucial side angle, will at least return 1 for now, rotating behind Jen, but sprays out, I think, a bit too early there, is now they find themselves caught now very low indeed, and Geif as well from GEEKAY behind, occupying a 3rd point of pressure, where NASR really are now stuck in between 2 squads.
GEEKAY, they kept themselves on the northern side way, away from all these teams. But Milky Way's got the grenade. He's going to be lobbying right off the buildings and just avoids getting knocked himself as Yen is going for the reset on to Nomi. NASR, I mean, he's caught between a rock and a hard place, and there was nowhere left to hide behind that wall.
Major makes it work, and they do secure their position, but look at the zone. It's gone away from the chopsticks, Monica, and it's GEEKAY who control that north end of that lower ground, and also on the other hand, SKYROCKET who slowly menace their way in on that western flank, block out a lot of the potential here of Major's exit.
We got Easy staying right into the smoke tops. All of Pride's attention is onto where this lone member of NASR is at. So SKYROCKET, they could be putting themselves in a position where they can really be a thorn in the side of Major Pride, especially as these smokes start to dissipate. Ali 21 just hiding down into the trenches here behind a car. I don't think he's quite within this next circle yet, as we see 12 this time taking out an 18th position.
Major continuing to slowly weave their way forwards. SKYROCKET in amongst the bottom of that chasm, keeping control for now, but as the smoke cloud dissipates, there reveals a position of Pride. SKYROCKET step up for the initial shots, but they miss. And now Pride get even further in. The molly will be lobbed, but it will go far wide between the two, and the entire cloud will protect Pride. Gets them underground for now. It's an aid sent forward in, but again another miss, a blunder by SKYROCKET, and it allows an established position on top of the fact that Nomi grabs down one of SKYROCKET in return, but NASR will have enough for them coming in forward. They'll find one, maybe even find a second. Is Ali the sole survivor, keeping themselves up.
6 eliminations found from Ali, and it's going to be Major Pride still trying to break their way in through the tunnels. SKYROCKET using it as their distraction to go up the other end, but Ali, I mean, he's not long for this world at all, but SKYROCKET may be the little bit of support that he needs as RRR throws a grenade to the side of Major Pride.
A bit later on that nade throw, all of Major Pride would have walked straight on into it. Nade as well. Bouncing through, now the smokes laid out as Ali continuing their position. Major know that there is a player here, but do they know that the entire of GEEKAY are here and they are ready to play, and they execute away Major.
That's why the chopsticks area is so difficult to play, because there's just singular sight lines down the sides, but there's almost nowhere left to hide. And Major Pride, you know, congrats, you know, won the fight against the solo of NASR, but it was just GEEKAY just to collect up Pasco and collect the $20 or $200, right, as it go for them. All split out over here, but again, this is one sight line that they have, right, as SKYROCKET is creeping on their bellies and try to come down.
SKYROCKET have played a very aggressive game to try poke and force Major into that unfortunate tunnel where they went down, but now they also need to step up in towards GEEKAY's territory, and GEEKAY will not let go as the zone still lies on that western edge for their control. The other hand as well, we still have all 4 members, keep in mind, of also 2 of Twisted Minds and RTG. Those 4 rogue players here, Monica, on that more eastern side, can still hold a lot of upset.
Oh, what? He had gaped right in his vision, literally his back to him, and misses the grenade. Twisted Minds, though, they're keeping their attention on Road to Glory, trying to secure up one higher placement point. But Ragnarok, I mean, these are only 2, right? So you have 2 and a 1. GEEKAY finally finds his demise to the likes of RRR with the grenade. So GEEKAY is now put down to only 3 players. Can they hold this trench as SKYROCKET is coming over and about to look down upon them?
SKYROCKET, they've sent the nade, the bowl over, almost grabs Hope as they now make the run for it. Past SKYROCKET, explosions as Triple R sends in another, but that will go wide. Hope now is going to be found as SKYROCKET make the push in, try to extract down to solo, but Hope will do at least some damage, but GEEKAY not enough as they all fall. SKYROCKET, a slow but careful and calculated approach in onto the gutter, and GEEKAY will fall forth. But look at Twisted Minds, still 9 eliminations, still 2 players up, and they took one of RTG out. It's only them and the rest of SKYROCKET fighting through the blue.
I love how so conjoined that SKYROCKET is playing right now, playing as almost one big organism, right? Instead of just 4 individuals trying to go after it, they pushed on one after, or, getting Hope down to about halfway health and found him. Now they found the last player of Road to Glory, so it's only 2 left, Island Wolf. It's Twisted Minds versus SKYROCKET.
And Ragnarok already expired. SKYROCKET, they've got the angles. SKYROCKET, they're looking for the chicken dinner, the first one of today. And oh boy, did they need it. In Monica, SKYROCKET looking like a completely renewed team, coming fresh off of that Super Weekend.
SKYROCKET, we saw them in the last Super Weekend, right? They got a chicken dinner or 2, able to qualify into Super Weekends, and they're setting themselves up to do that once again this week, and they're really, really gonna need it because this is a team that didn't qualify in that first week Super Weekend, and then they got some points in the second, but they really need this third one if they want to get into finals.
Right, and indeed, SKYROCKET getting, I think, the best start that they could have, getting those eliminations. They took the one of RTG down, then they took, of course, the rest of Twisted Minds away for that chicken dinner, and yeah, I believe 10 eliminations with that chicken dinner will already put them on average about halfway there to making sure they get that qualification spot into the top 16. But you also have to look on the other hand of their RTG in amongst that kind of top 5 are really the only other team that need to get these points to qualify into Super Weekend to make sure that they get a space in the finals later, getting 11 and crucially staying alive to that top 3 finish.
I was a little worried for SKYROCKET because they had been going into the military base this entire past weekend without OOREDOO Thunders there. So I was wondering, where are they going to go now that OOREDOO Thunders is back? They went into the Novo Crates area and they looted and they rotated actually all the way over to that northwestern side of the circle. And that's where they came in to win out the match. So this is a team that's been rotating since the very first second of the match and able to still get the chicken dinner.
Yeah, and as we check out that second page as well here, Monica, of those teams who didn't perform so well, and I think a few of those who we would like to see a bit higher. I think CONQUEROR Iraq, obviously 90th minute, both on only 1 Super Weekend under their belt. They will need to make a better performance here coming into our next Miramar game. I think also a slight underestimation on 4K there, also getting caught out particularly early in those rotations. Now, I think for 4K, they were just a bit too aggressive early on. They could have still stayed further in towards that non-playable area between the play zone and the blue itself, whereas making those forced plays really did hinder them getting themselves that 16th spot overall.
And not the way you want to start off the match, because remember, they only have 8 matches, 4 in each day for today and tomorrow, try to qualify for Super Weekend. So if you already threw a game away, like 4K has done with 0 points, now they have only 7 matches to get enough points to get into this weekend.
Yeah, no, Super Weekend, keep in mind, still all for it for the money. But as we said, all for it for these teams who need their last chance to qualify. Keep in mind, Monica, this is the last week that these teams get to get into the Super Weekend before our finals later in June. So it is very high stakes for all of these teams to make sure that they're having those consistent performances.
CONQUEROR Iraq, I want to see more from them, right? This is a team that we know can perform well. They did so well the first week, just make it the second week, and they've also started off the week here pretty weakly, right? 1 point, was it 1 point or so found just in the 1 placement point. So it's just, man, they are really just digging themselves a deeper hole to try to get in for the Super Weekend. And
as we check out those best stopping moments as well, Monica, from our first Erangel game, you can say, as you said yourself, right, the positions from CONQUEROR on this south side really did struggle for them overall. I think that it created a lot of problems for coming into that zone when it did shift towards that more eastern side. You could see the rotations were going to be inevitably difficult, but more teams, I think, than not, actually struggled a lot more than I thought they would in Major. Unfortunately, just falling for the bait of NASR there as GEEKAY just exploded them.
I think GEEKAY was just ready for it. They saw the smokes. They heard gunshots coming in that direction. They knew what was about to happen. And just unfortunate for Major Pride, they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But over here at SKYROCKET, so they're the ones that get the last laugh right with the chicken dinner and clearing out the entirety of this end lobby.
And of course, SKYROCKET, we can't forget that they had such a phenomenal game here for themselves, Monica, in this first match. And I think we've seen these times kind of not consistent, but still there for SKYROCKET, where we have these fantastic games. And we have to keep in mind that SKYROCKET, they've had these types of matches before. We are now looking for SKYROCKET. Can they keep that consistency up and have the same result through on this next game, which is going to be Miramar? Because that has been their biggest issue for them, where they haven't had, as you can see through their Super Weekend results, the best of times when it comes to getting those top results time and time again.
Time and time again, SKYROCKETs. It's either, I feel like it's either all or nothing from them, right? Like we either see them get a chicken dinner with 15 eliminations or
Right.
10 eliminations in this particular example, or they just go out first and they're find themselves in an engagement way too early. We kept seeing SKYROCKET and Cur12 actually find themselves right next to each other in a lot of the matches from this past weekend. I'm hoping they can keep this ball rolling, use this as their momentum and motivation to continue throughout today and tomorrow.
And a psychological aspect we have to keep in mind, Monica, as well, for these teams when it comes to making sure they have these good results. I think a lot of the pressure, as we said, definitely does rest and to remind, of course, on these bottom teams who need to get in. I think for them, does that affect their mentality, Monica, would you say, at least having experience of being inside a team and how that works?
Yeah, there's so much. I think it's very underrated or not really thought about, right? The mentality that goes behind it, goes behind these teams, because they could be coming into a match either momentum's high or momentum's strong. You know, good mindset, good bad mindset, and that really affects you. Like if you are doing well, your comms are going to be clear, your rotations are going to be good. You're not going to be second doubting your in-game leader and such like that. But then if you're not performing well, your in-game leader, maybe they called something to cause your team to go out way too early the previous game, and you might be that
Yeah.
slight moment of hesitation and doubting might cause you a fight and might cause your team to go out early once again.
I'll tell you what these teams and these players at home, Monica, should not doubt on, no. Of course, it's our in-game Grizzly Bear card collection. Join the card collection draw and win outfits. There is a chance, of course, to get all the pieces of an item in one go. And Monica, we've been talking about it, and we need to talk about it again, is that there's only a few more days for this card collection.
Oh, yeah. 2 more days. Okay, that's 2 more days to get in, and I mean it might take some time to get all those items in one draw, so you better hurry up and go for it before this entire crate is gone.
Look, I mean, if you want them, go get them in your pocket right now, log in and get those rewards. But also, Monica, I think these teams coming into Miramar, very excited to see what they can offer, because we haven't had, I think, this many Miramar games, right? Last weekend, we had our free in a super weekend, but it's been a while since we really saw consistent Miramars day in, day out. And I'm curious to see now, from the start of the tournament to the end of the tournament now in week 3, how these teams are really going to adapt, I think, more so to the Miramar games so often.
There's also a beauty in having the same maps repetitively in a certain day, right? Instead of having, hey, Erangel, Miramar, Sandhawk, and there's kind of a lot of alternations, because Miramar, right? We haven't played it in so long, but because we're playing it multiple times, if a team made a mistake in this first Miramar today, they just have to wait one more game,
Yeah,
and then they
exactly.
play Miramar again. So it's very fresh in their minds, their mistakes and their rotations, versus, hey, Miramar, we played it today over the Super Weekend. It's another 24 hours until I see Miramar once again. You may forget.
And I think that's the point that you say so brilliantly, Monica, is that these teams can make those adaptations on the fly. And that's where the crucial part is in the league stage, is you have to remember that jumping in between these maps, these teams can make those adaptations from one game to the next. And it creates for, I think, also particularly here in week 3, a lot more potential volatility in the play of these teams, because as we say, there are a lot of teams still that have already kind of found their mark into qualifying to those finals later in July. They could also be hot dropping down onto some of these other teams, changing their own strategies to make sure some of those other teams also don't get in.
I think it's a little too early right now, but I'm definitely Highland Wolf, what you just said. Later on tomorrow, I think some of these teams are really going to be playing that. Hey, this team, like for example, like Conqueror Iraq didn't qualify for the first weekend. They're really on the chopping block to potentially not make finals. So if I'm a team right below them, if I can prevent them from getting into this last sleeper weekend, that would be my chance to climb up into top 16 for the finals.
And got all to see as we jump into Miramar, our first one of the day here, Monica. And it's going to be a Puerto Parisio beginning and up towards that north side, I believe, of El Pozo to close off that beginning playing path. Yes, I am correct for once. Woo!
This is pretty casual, right? I mean, this is teams are saying, okay, this is a nice map, right? The pilot is just right on course, and we're not going to see anyone really long jumping too far, where we've seen some of them from this weekend, right? Really down, even past Chumacera, down in that southwestern corner, and everybody, maybe half the lobby, is trying to find some other option to land.
Yeah, of course, keep in mind we are inserting Group B into the tournament, whereas Group A, who played last game, will be sitting out. So you are looking at some of the... Oh, sorry, Group D will be sitting out, as I argue here. So there will be a change in the teams playing. But I think that also, when you look towards teams now jumping in, such as VISTA here for their first game of the day, a lot more pressure on them here, more so than the rest, because as we say, they are the only team not to make a single super weekend. If they don't make this weekend, they are already automatically eliminated from the tournament, and they have to do something special in these 8 games to make that not happen.
Right off the bat, I see 4K Esports and SKYROCKET's going in a very similar situation. And you know what's funny? Twisted Minds is one of those teams in Group D that is not in this match. And both of these two teams, and these are kind of those scavenger teams I keep talking about, right? They don't really have a permanent drop spot. They just go where a team is not going in the lobby with these group plays. And it looks like both of them, they've had the exact same idea. And when two people have the exact same idea, it all of a sudden becomes a very, very bad idea.
And as well, when this zone goes very much towards that northern end, slightly away from that playing path, but still will complement at least the entrances into that southern part of the zone. I think, however, it does create an opportunity for those kind of very wide northern flanking rotations, depending, of course, where phase 2 does go. But at least for the meantime, that opportunity is still there. And I like that already Rad have moved up towards that La Coparia side and making that opportunity a realistic option towards them, because you can see if it coming in from La Coparia, they can then kind of move across that road away from the impact of other opponents around them and have a lot more space to work with around that water treatment into Cristóbal, Torhamada section.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if teams were, especially on the southern side, would wide rotate all the way up there, because they clearly identified, hey, we had a pretty central plane path, very far northeastern circle, so that northeastern side, north side, should be fairly clear. But what isn't clear, Highland Wolf, is going to be this North Los Leones area. The only one has had this area, this entire city to them the entire weekend. So they've kind of shifted up into that northern side, and now 90th Minute has returned here, found their way here, and who else has found something? It's going to be Vista Gaming onto the likes of Falcon.
And now you're looking at, I think, the likes of Falcons and losing one already early on in this contestation. Around kind of more of a happy end of Patron side. Now, Falcons, this is all off the fact that they are still making that rotation to their own location, and Falcons wanting to head up all the way into Cristóbal. So Vista also heading in that same area do capitalize, I think, on Falcons' early rotation that they want to make, where they won't have as much loot, whereas Vista dropping and wanting to loot around the happy ender location itself will be able to then not only, as we say, pick up that elimination, but also begin to establish a bit more control with less of these teams around, because of the zone being a bit more towards the north versus that southern plane path.
I believe this is a matter of some teams just didn't do their homework quite much, because the only one they used to, when they shared the city with 90th Minute, the only one used to land a little bit more in that kind of south western side of the city and have since, because 90th minute wasn't in this past weekend, come into the northern side where 90th minute usually comes. So both these teams, I think they just weren't really aware that, I mean, they knew that the team would come back, but just kind of forgot where the other team usually goes and have now found themselves right on top of each other.
90th also going to be a little bit later on their own rotation north of that Los Leones part. They are going to head in towards, I believe, it's La Bendita sector and going to probably hold up here, not too far towards Graveyard, expecting probably teams, of course, to be in this location. Conqueror, no, obviously are playing, do love to stay around this Graveyard side in towards phases 2-3 if possible. So that location in that gateway, if you like, into that northern side, potentially could be contested. But as we check back on that replay, 90th, as always, at least grabbing one of the only one players in beside them on Los Leones there.
This could be really good for them, especially if 90th minute is able to qualify in the Super Weekend and the only one is not. Remember, the only one, they're at the bare bottom of the overall standings for Super Weekend. They're only sitting in 14th position, so they're really, you know, if they don't qualify for the Super Weekend, there's no chance that they're going to get into finals, because for sure the teams below them will get there. Maybe that's something that 90th minute wants to continue to push this engagement onto the only one.
All of these teams kind of finishing up their initial looting phase by now, 6 minutes into the 7-minute mark. Of course, thinking about those rotations and teams further out, like, of course, NIGMA in El Pozo here. Again, very comfortable, as we said, on those wider northern rotations. Likely going to be a bit of a decision for them. They could come up again towards that La Coparia side, and naturally Rad will contest them there. Also, there is that other risk of, I think, NIGMA, where they rotate through that main road in past towards San Martin and half the end of the Patron. It's going to be a bit more chaotic, but I think kind of navigating between the two, actually, and coming down and towards that San Martin road and then heading up through the kind of Crater Fields mountainsides in towards Rad, much more successful of a rotation, because you are avoiding the main locations while still making a high ground and an opportunity for information for yourself.
The high grounds in Miramar, they play such a huge factor in these rotations, because obviously you can see the elevation is going to be much, much higher than in Erangel, like in Sandhog. You're going to have a lot of big sight lines, especially if you're set up on top, but you just have to be aware of that as you're rotating. It's going to be a little bit slower with all the mountains, right? And you just have to be aware that somebody, even if you think you're at a pretty high elevation, there's probably some mountains, some outcropping somewhere that another team could set up onto and look down upon you.
And that's that rotation I just mentioned. 4K actually going to pick up that exact idea of rotating through the Crater Fields, as we saw. So they will at least be able to potentially block off another option there of NIGMA, who shouldn't be too worried. They do rotate fairly late into the zone, and I imagine will pick up the remaining ground that is left to them. 4K probably going to look for a much more central position, as we know they love to do, for better or for worse, as of course you keep in mind that last game where they tried to get that central position, Monica, and it didn't really work out for them.
Yeah. NIGMA Galaxy, they have this edge strategy, right? And it works for them on Miramar, it works for them on Sandhog. We've seen them have really big games for them there, because in Miramar, they're landing at El Pozo, right on the edges. Sandhog, they're landing down in Sami, way far on the edges. But in Pochinki, it's just the outlier. They land dab center in Pochinki, trying to play an edge position. I keep saying that, but it just, obviously it's working on the other maps, it's just not working on Erangel. So I know it's too late in the game to, hey, I'm going to change my position from Pochinki, but I think a more edge drop spot in Erangel would work. It would fare much better for NIGMA Galaxy.
NIGMA, I believe they used to drop around kind of more of that farm side, so was more, I think, an aggressive overall position. Pochinki is fair, I think, of a position for themselves. Teams kind of naturally want to avoid that Gatka feels, that open rotation that NIGMA do like to make more so. And I think that on the side of that, you can see that NIGMA generally are a team that do want to avoid conflict in the beginnings of the game. They are much more focused about their own positional play. And this works out, I think, in terms of the earlier parts of the year, where teams were playing kind of all towards the more center points in particularly the Arabian region. However, as the time has adapted and as time has gone on, not only do these teams play more central, but you can see these fights on the outskirts still begin to take place as well. And Kurt 12 caught up in one of these potential issues versus the only one.
only one way up, and the only one are looking to ascend. But Curd12, they've thrown a Molotov down in the first floor, buying himself some time. They've heard the footsteps. There's only so many rooms that you can hide in over here. So Perox, I mean, he's got the grenade. I mean, I think that was more of a bait, right? He didn't quite throw it. He just baited it. Actually, he grenaded himself this time around. So fatal errors that have left us and Curd12 and the only one scratching our heads.
Oh, Curd12, they don't need to scratch their head anymore because the only one that's blowing it straight clean off. So they will pick up that elimination point for now. Phase 2. Gonna close in once more already. It's going to be more kind of northwestern shift that these teams are facing. So very much centralized around Hacienda, Del Patron, San Martin. And the kind of plateau that looks over Hacienda, Del Patron is already taken up, I think, very smartly by R8. So it was a good rotation by them to maybe take this higher ground position and overlook Hacienda. Major Pride later in the rotation, though, will lose Yen, but they catch out one and punish back SKYROCKET for it inside the blue. Is both of these teams kind of want to head towards more of that San Martin side and Picado Hill, but both trying to go that same direction, catching themselves out in the blue. And the problem is with two of these teams fighting in the blue currently is they are doing a lot of damage, they are losing vehicles and health, whereas they are still not even centralized in this next phase as it's about to hit onto the next one.
Yeah, like you touched on, not only are they losing the resources and everything, it's the time that is the most valuable here to try to get into this next phase. This is about to close one more time. You can see the blue moving now. There's quite a few players from either side caught out in the blue as they're trying to go for the flush, and RRR takes him back in the lobby. Milky Way collecting up an elimination for his team, but have left Major Pride as just the major two players of their team left alive.
I just don't think that SKYROCKET really imagined that they would be caught here by Major Pride in a bit of a whiff in their own positionings, being very caught out and over-aggressing, I would argue, into an even more open position where Major Pride could return that fire. I like that they did go for that initial knock, but trying to reroute and continue that aggression and trying to find those potential picks even further was a mistake by SKYROCKET. They will lose triple R for it, and I think they're very fortunate actually in their position. They didn't lose even more players because Major Pride, if they had a better setup, and there we go, Azizi does get dropped, they would have lost more members for SKYROCKET here, and they do lose 2 as a result now, potentially.
SKYROCKET always seems to be finding themselves in places for the very first time. You know, last game they dropped a Noble Craze, came over, and it worked out for them the last game, right? But here they, you know, for the very first time landing into Monte Nuevo and then are now rotating here. So every time they rotate and then find themselves by a team, it's kind of a surprise, right? Because this has never happened to them before. They always drop somewhere different. And I think it's also a surprise to these teams that land in certain areas all the time, like Major Pride. They usually rotate here completely for free, don't see anybody. And all of a sudden there's a team right here. Who else could it be? SKYROCKET.
And this very southern shift, though, is a hard one, Monica, and it's gone down in towards Graveyards. And I think this is a fantastic finish on phase 3 as YALLA also POWR skirmishing themselves as POWR going to send Kante a mega throw of a nade in, goes slightly wide of the top bumper, will not be exploded down just yet.
YALLA, it's a 2 versus 2 caught in the open here. YALLA still has a third somewhere, actually just driving around in the back end side, playing that little overwatch for the rest of his team as POWR has also lost 2. Once again, this is the same thing from the last match, losing 2 a little too early and having to play with only 2 left alive. So YALLA, the advantage is them, right? Especially in that miniature map, you see the vehicle coming all the way around and trying to cut them in the back, not giving them this ridge to hide behind at all. And this could be the critical angle that they're looking for to win out this engagement.
And Life as well has that more northern approach, that high ground approach, and you can see with POWR now losing their front man, Kante just not really there to follow up, with Life also shooting down, and YALLA just picking them apart one by one. Kante they're going to fall as well, and unfortunately POWR see themselves first out of this game. Now, as we said, back towards this third phase here, Monica, Graveyard, a very extreme shift, I would argue. Picado Hill still there with a mega high ground, but more towards that Graveyard, you can see OOREDOO and also Rad fighting over that mega high point of it, the location itself, whereas 90th minute opting for that lower point and will avoid maybe the fighting. But OOREDOO and Rad, this is a position for what potentially will be a very excellent church position.
Hassan just got a 1 versus 2 right within this building churchish area. Did you see that? Real Thunder had pushed or had one out there, and then they had the 2 members of Rad crash up on there, try to, I mean, good for them being able to identify the solo, but in doing so, you need to win your 2v1. They just, I don't know, it just went all wrong for them, and they were just caught off by themselves.
All right, also overlooking here from that San Martin outpost onto GEEKAY. And not for now going to open fire, but unfortunately GEEKAY have spotted that rogue imposter, and R8 will be shot at and sent back behind the mountainside. 4K as well, being exactly the same, scouted out by R8, and I like this by this crew because they are slowly gathering the information that they need to come in later, and it's a more informed gathering of information than I think the chaotic kind of gathering that we saw Ida driving into all of these teams trying to panic get that information for the rest of his team, and will set up R8 better, not only as a full squad, but having a more slower approach rather than trying to react to the zones as they attack them.
Yeah, they've got 4K really stuck within those warehouses, right? They all have their entire team in that one building. Where there's only one exit, come on the north and go down onto the roadside, right? So if R8, they leave Skyton up here watching 4K. If he can catch them in a vehicle coming up on the northern side, he could potentially blow them up, take them out of the map, secure one higher placement for himself. But Skyton, before he does that, he's gonna take that mini 14 and just really just. I mean, I hope Vista has some car insurance on that car, because they're gonna need another one very soon.
Vista in a very uncomfortable position though on that north as the zone did shift back into a big swing onto Picado Hill, and for NIGMA and for R8, this is a fantastic position for them. For those teams though, like of course Vista, but also those more particularly on that eastern rotation in, going to be very difficult, mainly because the roads here, there's a smaller road coming by Graveyard. You can see it on that more edge of the map there. It does cut off a lot of the players coming down from one hill into the next. That's going to be really the choke point that these teams are worried about. As you can see, Catan actually losing their life there, but also the northern side, gaining another road into the mountainside, which means it is another point of issue where teams just are going to struggle naturally, being exposed coming into a better spot.
R8, they have this trap laid out as they know there's a couple stragglers outside of the circle. It's going to be the likes of 4K and Vista coming in now. Somehow Vista is able to get the slip of all the teams around them and able to rotate while R8 was focused on 4K. So everyone does have a foot in the door right now, but 4K now trying to get away from here found themselves on the receiving end of all the shots from NIGMA Galaxy this time and are going to be losing one member.
All right. Looking for 4K inside of the smoke. That molly should go wide for now. And on a knock, will stay quiet for the meantime too. Has the shed for themselves. Vista also approaching from the other side, but 4K going for a more wider stretch in terms of this fight. And I think for 4K, a very interesting attempt. It's very much a, I would argue, desperate attempt to try get in onto this zone in one way or another. But instead, by being so split, they don't have a security of each other. Whereas actually being secure maybe doesn't mean success. It's CONQUEROR though, however, Monica just got blown down by the only one in Alush, picking up those two for 4 eliminations in total.
You said 4K was getting a little bit more desperate. CONQUEROR also joining the desperate club because this is the second game in a row that's gone out way too early. Not what you want to have when you only have 8 matches to try to qualify. Now 4K, he shot in the back from Vista, but it's going to be R8 to assist 4K this time around and prevent Vista from coming over and landing the shots.
Vista almost falls to that nade. That would have been a crucial nade onto R8 to halt Vista's position. They will lose their dino, and that's going to really lay down a slower approach for them, as SKYROCKET is just brutalizing these final 2 players. But look behind them, it gets even worse. Anaconda is there, and 4K, they at least will take out one of R8, maybe actually saving Vista. I thought they would go for Vista instead, as Anaconda still looking for that 1v1 over Vista, but the rest of the crew are also in that location. On a knock as well, stepping outside of the shed itself to get back down the hill. Reposition for 4K here as Anaconda getting barely inside. Will find SKYROCKET and get the elimination down.
4K is just playing so segregated right now, playing for themselves. One is only left up onto his feet as Anaconda is found and flushed on out. The only one actually now joining this kind of snake biting another snake situation here as they are taking the shots onto VISTA Gaming into the distance. But all these teams, though, they're running out of time. Blue Zone is closing in now, and nobody is anywhere close to entering the circle.
And it was a dire shift onto the Picado Hill mainland itself. There are these kind of nooks and crannies on the decline back towards Graveyard that these teams can slowly encroach up from and utilize to their advantage. But that main high hill, it is such a powerful position. You can see that RA can continue to lay waste on Vista, and even if they don't land a Nox, are slowing Vista down, whereas they need to make it into this zone with the blue, as you said, already behind him, capitalizing on a position where they don't really have that much leverage.
GEEKAY now joining in, taking their piece of a knock onto VISTA Gaming on the back end side. I mean, RA, they're all losing the time to try to get in. They're dwindling their numbers where both these teams started as a full 4-man squad, are now down to only 2. We're losing teams left and right now, but NIGMA Galaxy, they're just sitting high and pretty and looking down and trying to collect up all the eliminations left here. They're the only team, I believe, with still 4-man up.
You know, I said Enigma, it was either them or R8, they probably will have the best position in this game. And I think the Enigma, 4 players up right now, they have the top zone. They should easily win this game. There should be not a world, I think, where Enigma fall down and don't grab this chicken dinner, and it's up to them to make sure they do so appropriately as they send and bowl down the nades onto R8, who are now hiding for their lives, versus both Major Pride versus both Vista, who are still desperately clawing their way forward. SKYROCKET finally will fall, but will it be next another team alongside them as Vista down to 1?
We got one medding out in the blue zone right now. Make a desperate attempt to try to get some higher placement points here. GEEKAY, they're all trapped down below in one lone shack as our 8th finds the last member of Vista. Finally putting an end to this long drawn out fight that has been occurring since back in San Martin. 8 teams left alive. In NIGMA Galaxy, they won the last Miramar that we saw in the Super Weekend. They're definitely trying to one-up themselves with even more.
I mean, hands down, as we say, NIGMA have total and utter control of this match. Major Pride will go try for the pity elimination points, as it were. These players still stuck out against the blue. Nomi also looking above, of course. NIGMA still have the utility, still have the capability of bowling down a few nades on top of these players' heads.
Pride still watching down this last player of YALLA, really sucking in his breath and trying to be as flush as this tree as possible. GEEKAY, you're going to be out. Before we can get to that, let's look on that replay once again of 90th minute with the SLR finding the shots onto everyone in the distance and the grenade onto Reedle Thunders. I was wondering whatever happened to this team, and it was just 1 grenade for the price of 2.
And OOREDOO, they felt like so many on these replays, of course, but to check back in with the main stage, it's NIGMA who do lose 1 for now, but it's a 1-for-1 trade, whereas the only one will fall down into their blue position, but GEEKAY gonna fall shortly after them as they will lose 2 of their own players. Hope the only one remaining now inside of that shack, but it is an all healing game for them as NIGMA continuing to oppress their control. Yes, they have lost 2, but the locked members are coming back together, and it will at least potentially buy some time for Major Pride, for R8 to step up here to try find a position if they can find another knock onto NIGMA. But if they get these revives up, I really do feel like NIGMA, they just don't have a position to realistically lose this game.
We've seen NIGMA Galaxy. I mean, any team that can bring all 4 into the late games will, have the best advantage. That's a given, anyone. But some of these teams, like NIGMA Galaxy, like GEEKAY, if they bring the 4, it's almost really assured. Like, it's in what world, unless we're in the Upside Down and Stranger Things, do they lose this type of game? Especially in the high upper ground like this, it's so much easier to reset because you just come back a little bit. No one's, rock climbing up these mountains to try to get at you. So NIGMA Galaxy have had the advantage to height advantage and the advantage to reset their players and still are sitting with 4-man strong versus these teams below with only 2 or even 1 player left.
I mean, these other teams are going to need a true monster of a performance here, Monica, to be able to realistically do anything to the rest of NIGMA Galaxy. Of course, the utilities are beginning to run out. I think more so for these duo players, for the solo players, more than NIGMA. The Zono has gone down in phase 6, down towards the mountain actually. So it has ended up in towards more of a position for Major Pride. It does favor them, I think, the most now in this zone. But as you said, the problem is that NIGMA still have these all 4 players alive, and as RA lose one of their players to Falcons there, these skirmishes between the teams of 2 really will only hinder them all, as NIGMA say thank you very much for removing one more threat that we are required.
Falcons definitely in the most difficult position in the circle, being so far out on the northern side, especially just announcing their entire lobby with the grenades on R8. Now everyone, especially NIGMA Galaxy from above, knows exactly where they're at, and there you see the resources. You said they're running out, but it looks like they still have some other, found them in the secret pocket of their backpack and are lobbying them down this time around. So still all 4 of them. Can anyone take down the Titans? That is NIGMA Galaxy in Miramar.
Spread out, going into more of that 3-1 rotation, Rove. Mainly to scout for now, to pick apart the members still later into the final phase 6, phase 7 mark. Is the smoke will be laid in the way, blocks out one of Falcons, blocks out the eyes of R8. Excellent positions by Rarof to navigate down this mountainside slowly. Nade over the top of 4K will maybe take him out, but it won't be as harmful as Falcons falling down to 4K themselves. The Molly will go slightly wide, and Onanok still alive and kicking. Maybe has diminished Falcons away for now, as Raouf locked in combat between 4K, surviving into the top 4 as R8 will fall first, but it is the drop shot by Raouf behind with the help of his teammates will grab through the final member of the 4K crew. But Major sitting quietly as Falcons will be the next on the hit list by NIGMA. They will fall down next, and it is only down to Nomi, to Milky Way, to try to defend this position, but they do not have the manpower.
Going to be 2 versus 4. These are 2 teams we know has the fighting power, the strength to really win these fights. As NIGMA Galaxy, they need to go for the reset here, bring all 4 to try to put their numbers as high as possible, going as Milky Way against Nomi. I mean, these are 2 players I would not want to be caught by myself trying to fight. Nomi with the UMP there. I mean, they can only look up at the nostrils of NIGMA Galaxy as they look down upon them. This is where they're using their, monster, their adrenaline, anything they can into the late game. Grenade falling just a little shy though, and it's still the battle of the rock croppings. Who can
that will land. That will hit down the rest of Milky Way and Nomi there as they burn up, repositioned in the catch out of players. They know exactly the crevices they hide behind. Nomi gonna avoid the next one for now, but the nades will now be utilized as the final use of utility by NIGMA to try land a position. They may decide to drop down here onto Milky Way as well. As there goes Freak, looks for the shots down. We will find Nomi in the hand. A nade catches out Nomi in a bad position, as it will only be a 1-for-1 trade. Then Milky Way slips down a mountainside as they look for a reposition indeed. Lord will now use their body to look and hunt for the rest of Major Pride, as they will spy out the extra revive coming through, but not by just Major Pride. NIGMA also made that revive onto Aouf as they bolt down and Molly, but it misses. And it's a big turn by Major as they get the next elimination on board, and he has a nade still in his hands. Raouf, you gotta watch out, man, because that one's coming up high, and Nomi, Milky Way keeping themselves up for the meantime, but they are, of course, lower down on that mountainside. The zone did crunch in between the 2, so there is more room to work with, despite that still by NIGMA. The nade sent high into the air will be very short, though, on Raouf as he steps back and allows the zone here to begin to close in on Major.
I mean, if NIGMA Galaxy, I mean, we said, in what world would they throw this win? But somehow they went from 4 all the way down to 3 without getting any of those elims back in the side of Pride. The blue zone's coming in now. Nomi's going to be bleeding on out. So Ralph, he has the blue zone. He just needs to play the waiting game.
Yeah, they had no elimination points over with the extra player. NIGMA Galaxy, they know they just have to wait this game out. It's going to be a slow, unfortunate finish to the excitement that we were after, but NIGMA, no doubt, of course, do take that second chicken dinner in their hands. And with 9 eliminations, keep in mind here too, Monica, it was a still strong and particularly positional performance by them.
I was gonna say that was a bit of an anticlimactic ending because I definitely thought it was gonna be NIGMA Galaxy just racking up all the eliminations because we saw them do that the entire last 10 minutes. But it was definitely, they had the circle. They kept Raul back and they sent the other 3 to try to clean up on those 2 eliminations, just being very greedy, maybe a little bit too greedy for those final eliminations, right? Because they actually ended up not getting either of those 2 eliminations on Major Pride and just gave those 3 eliminations on their teammates to Major Pride.
Look, I think that Major definitely keeping themselves without the elimination points crucial to avoid NIGMA's standing as we check out those match rankings. Of course, Monica, with NIGMA up on top there with their own chicken dinner. Major coming in second, but you also have to keep in mind that Falcons were surviving alongside 4K, who both managed to, despite their issues, outlive R8, who actually fell down in 5th position.
Sometimes in these matches, we usually see the top 3, right? Really just soaking up all the points. We see them maybe, 13 and then 12 and then 11. Then everyone else is kind of in that 1 to 2 range. So because the eliminations were taken up in the earlier games by the only one by 98th minute, even GEEKAY, R8 each having 3 to 5 each, it just caused less eliminations found from NIGMA Galaxy Major Pride. But still, great win from NIGMA Galaxy, and they really need that after going out with only 3 points in the first match.
Yeah, of course, keep in mind in the only 90th minute, again, keeping those 7-6 points. Those are the teams that we are looking at to get those points as well. So getting that average that they kind of need is about that 6.5, 7 point mark, keeping on track there. But I think also when you look towards that next page, that's really where the issues do lie, Monica, because we are looking at the likes of CONQUEROR, of also Kurd, of VISTA, of SKYROCKET, of OOREDOO. 5 of our 8 teams that we named going into today need to get into this Super Weekend. Not a great performance. OOREDOO, better than the rest, sure, 6 points, but it's a few points compared to the comparative amount these top teams got.
OOREDOO Thunders, the eliminations they found, those 6 were basically given to them, right? It was who was it? I want to say Rad, right? They try to take the fight with them in that kind of church-ish graveyard area, just giving them the eliminations, but they didn't really have to move anywhere. And after that, having the fight with YALLA, where they eventually took them out. OOREDOO Thunder, they just, I mean, for the 0 placement points, that's great that they got the 6 eliminations, but it just, I mean, they didn't really do much that match beyond that.
Yeah, and it's very restrictive, I think, for them coming now into Erangel, where they need to really rack up these placement points. And those placements have been the issue by, I think, some of these lower placed teams, Monica, because they haven't had that consistency in getting into the late games. That's where I think the more than any other point lies their mistakes.
The team that has really showcased that, the first 2 matches, is definitely SKYROCKET, right? They got the first chicken dinner and then did very well the second one.
Look, despite those SKYROCKETs, all of these teams, they have a short break as we check out the best opera moments to recover before we jump into our 3rd match. Welcome back, everyone, after our short break here at the PMPL Arabia Full Split. Myself, Harlan Wolf, and Monica with you, alongside, of course, the Oppo Reno 7 Pro 5G. We upgrade performance and upgraded fun. Celebrate your winning spirit with the brand new Oppo Reno 7 Pro 5G, the designated smartphones for PUBG Mobile, Middle East, and Africa Esports 2022. But as we always say, Monica, you need a drink, an energy to go alongside the phone you play PUBG on. And what better than Monster Energy, the official energy drinks partner of PMPL Arabia?
The two teams that have drank a little bit of Monster alongside their chicken dinners today was going to be SKYROCKET from the very first Erangel today, and then NIGMA Galaxy just now from Miramar. So as we hop into Erangel one more time, let's see who's going to have this Monster drink along with their winner chicken dinner.
In the last Erangel game, very interesting as we check out that map schedule, of course, because this time you don't get the teams from Group C playing, and it's going to be the Group's E first opportunity. So again, these types of teams, such as VISTA, jumping back on board here. And I think realistically, these squads, as we say, have had an interesting performance so far on Erangel. I think more so than Miramar and Sandhawk throughout the tournament, because it has been the map that through the course of these 3 weeks, Monica, has changed the most, I think, on how these teams play.
Yeah, definitely a huge factor. And the teams that we're not going to see this match is going to be 4K, CONQUEROR, Iraq, OOREDOO Thunders, and then POWR that are not going to be in. So these are teams that are kind of really split up across the map. Not any of these two teams are right next to each other. So I think that's going to really open it up for those. Remember those scavenger teams that we keep saying? I need to come up with another word because I keep saying scavenger teams. But the ones that like don't have a permanent spot and they just opportunistic. Yeah, opportunistic teams that always go into their position wherever the teams that are out drop.
Look, we're going to head straight into the game here, Monica, and it's going to be, as we said, another important game. Keep in mind, we're keeping an eye on the standings throughout each of these games because there are about 8 or so teams, 9 if you include RTG, that do need to make it into this next Super Weekend to confirm their location inside of the finals. If not, they are all down to the fates of other teams or may already in the hands of VISTA, who do need to get some points off the board, will be eliminated if they don't make this Super Weekend next.
Yeah, there's some teams that I would say are pretty comfortable right now, like SKYROCKET, like NIGMA Galaxy, the ones that have gotten the chicken dinners today. They can really just utilize that as kind of their anchor, right? Even if we start falling a little bit in the other matches, hey, we already had a chicken dinner, already put ourselves at the standing, and this is where the other teams in the lobby recognize that they're doing well. So maybe their eyesight, their targets are in the teams that are not doing well, and that's going to be CONQUEROR Iraq, but of course they're not in this match right now, and some of the other teams that have been going out way, way too early.
And this is going to also be here, Monica, another northern plane path heading into Zaki. And I think for those teams such as OOREDOO, OOREDOO because they aren't playing, but the likes, I think, of those teams who do play more towards the south end, such as SKYROCKET, is actually having to change out their location. Whereas you see a zone here, a first phase, it's very uncomplimentary and does actually focus itself down towards that south side. So I think the aim at the game is going to be a lot of these earlier rotations by those teams like SKYROCKET, by those squads such as VISTA and 90th, who all tend to go down towards that south side as a whole.
Yeah, the name of the game is to avoid people at the very beginnings, and the ones that are avoiding it looks like SKYROCKET, instead of going down to Noble, of course, like you said, did not have a chance to get down there with the plane path, have now gone to the North Georgia Pole area. So is this going to be a little bit of thorn in the side to R8? Because you can see one right next to another member of SKYROCKET, and then VISTA Gaming, which we've seen them ping-ponging all over the map, right? Like I don't think they've consistently gone to one place yet, but it looks like they're taking up the place where POWR usually likes to go and have now singled out a solo of 90th minute.
And this is Vista, I think, doing their homework here, catching out these players who do tend to drop on their solo and on their own, where you can capitalize on these elimination points, practically given for free if you can correctly identify these solo players at the beginning of the game. And you nodded up towards that northern end with SKYROCKET. They're doing the exact same, where RA do tend to go for a more split drop in towards Zaki. A few of them is prestigious up there, so they can capitalize and actually make that fight roughly about a 4 versus 2 before Bandar and Prestige can actually act in support.
Onto the other half of Vista Gaming, though, 90th minute, Yazan, he crashed his buggy onto that truck and was like, I'm not going to chance this, and starts running down the hill, calls for the speediest Uber that can get in this way. But let's shift onto the North Georgia Pole area of SKYROCKETs. This time, we saw that solo caught out, are now having 3 of R8 below.
And R8, but at least they've done a good work here to join back together. Prestige is now there with them, and you are looking at a world where R8, the longer this fight goes on, the better it is for them. They are much more, I'd argue, familiar with this location compared to SKYROCKET, who much more love to go in towards that south side. I do admire SKYROCKET's bravery. However, of course, to try contest R8 and taking out one of these top teams would create a lot of space for them. Naturally, by the rest of these teams' locations, they would have more free access to rotate down towards that south and that more eastern or western side, should I say, coastline, complementary to that zone. However, the hard work comes at the beginning, as we said, of this fight versus R8, and if you get taken out early on, there is no future.
This future is looking very bleak this time for SKYROCKET. R8, they set themselves up on the hillsides around them. I think RIP, we see 3 of the members of SKYROCKET, maybe identifying there's a solo up here, and now putting their light sights onto him and is able to find the solo. So R8, I mean, they maybe biting off a little bit more than they can chew with this huge split.
It was a beautiful, actually, turnaround by SKYROCKET. Now, they could have ran away from that fight, but they saw it. Bandar revealed themselves, trying to find the juicy 3-man elimination onto the car. Instead, actually, now will fall down. Does get over the hillside, so makes it a bit awkward to go for the punish. They will just kind of hold off a bit and let Bandar trickle away in their HP bar, make less shots required to finish off that player. However, they do need to confirm away that elimination, as they will for now. Triple R will find the angle from the back end. In R8, although now they don't have that extra player to try bait the members of SKYROCKET over, are still continuously split. Keep in mind that they did actually split apart at the end of that exchange, and now SKYROCKET, who are much closer together, have Triple R as this flanking side too, do technically have a better position overall on the outlook to this compound.
Yeah, what you said, the kind of beautiful churn of aggression, like a switch we actually saw. You could almost see it in the mind of the driver. SKYROCKET's like going over here. It's like, wait, there's a solo there, and immediately just churn this wheel all the way to the left to find him. I think any other lesser team would have just driven away, just try to forget this happened, go somewhere else next game. But I really like what they did here. And remember, SKYROCKET, they don't really have anything to lose. They're already top of the overalls in these first 2 matches versus R8, who's only sitting at 12 points overall. They're middle of the pack, but there's only about a 7-point difference between them and 16th place. So they really cannot afford to have a bad game.
And that's just the nature, of course, too. They've only got 2 games so far, these teams to play so far. And I think crucial for SKYROCKET, though, as you say, to get these points early on, however, because like them and R8, they're both in Group A, keep in mind, Monica. So this is their last Erangel game that they will actually play today, because they won't play Game 5. So they need to get actually more points than these other teams earlier on, because they will be sitting at that last game, and that's then the opportunity for these other teams to catch up on Group A and actually potentially knock the likes of SKYROCKET, of R8 further behind.
The circle is setting up to be very similar to that first Erangel that we saw today, right? It's very much on that western kind of GEEKAY general central area. So a lot of these teams are doing the exact same thing, the same kind of rotation, same spot. They're really, I mean, they should be very close to the teams that they were close to in the last game, right? It's just those outliers like Vista Gaming, like SKYROCKET that we saw that went to a different spot, that I think the teams from the first game aren't quite aware that it's happening if they haven't engaged upon them yet, and that's going to be what the other kind of variable in these matches that could come and result in a different outcome.
And I think the most crucial variable when we talk about it, I mean, also, of course, is doing a 360. GEEKAY, clap, 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 because I am proud of you. I mean, Ragnar, that was a indeed beautiful flip. It was all intended, of course. Is down towards this south side. That's where I really wanted to highlight here is these earlier rotations by the teams. Now, we're looking more towards the actually opposite here of the later rotations of both Rad and Code12, who are both kind of lingering about this farm and Milta side and taking both each other out. And I nod back to actually that last game once more, where you saw Major Pride and Vista doing, was it Vista or SKYROCKET, I believe it was, doing the exact same thing, Monica, and taking each other out, wasting utility, wasting supplies on kind of fights that just don't need to happen, whereas you're much better trying to find a position out and actually blocking that team later on in a more favorable spot in the zone.
You remember from Super Weekend, I want to say it was the last Erangel match that happened, Curt12 actually sent 3 to try to eliminate the one player of Rad next to them in Milta.
Oh no, don't bring it up, Monica. I mean,
I'm just saying now, Curt12, I mean, Curt12's like, stop bringing all these things, like all our vehicle misouts, 4 versus 1, but they try to do that. But now they've learned their lesson, right? And now they're trying to camp Rad from the safety of Milta this time. But I mean, nothing really occurred this game because of it. But it's a little bit of a adaptation from Curt12.
And it's an interesting way that Curt12 are actually rotating. Now, Rade will have I think, easy rotation up until the point that the only one then have eyes on them because that beach is still very open. Now, Curt have gone for a much slower rotation up towards that kind of more northern point. They are going to have to contest around that more Pachinki edge, but if it can make a big wraparound around Potato Hill and actually come up towards that north side of Pachinki in the church, is a better rotation overall. However, for Curt12, it's unlikely that they go this location because naturally they will be expecting teams to kind of be hovering around, if not NIGMA not playing in this game, the likes of Twisted Minds potentially being there as well.
So everyone, like you said, the Pachinki edge is just within, probably not going to be in this next match at all. Falcons, though, they did well for themselves the last match, despite not getting the chicken dinner. Still, giving everyone else a run for their money, staying alive and being a contending factor. 0 eliminations found right now. I like their spread, though, on this Pachinki side. Lots of safety, and you want to be split to the point where you're getting different amounts of information from each teammate, right? Like this person can see something completely different than a different teammate can, but not so split that you can't provide support. And here we have Yusuf, still huge eyesights onto all of his teammates here. Even if a team were to crash up or start engaging into a fight, he can quickly come in and go for the support.
And Yusuf gonna locked down here alongside the rest of Falcons, this more edge position. It's just outside of Pachinki and slightly south, where you have a few of these buildings laying about in towards the more ferry pier locations and towards more of those kind of Erangel 2.0 hills. Is Triple actually are taking up further down in towards that south part of the zone. It's a slower rotation overall by these teams coming in through the south as Rad. Yes, they are trying to find a location for now, slightly later to the party, and as a result, there's nowhere really there for them. And as we said, you do need to be a bit slower on those rotations in the south end because it is more open. It is going to be a bit more tricky navigating around that beachfront, whereas Rad now just have to go along that same path perhaps as Curt12 has done, but lose out on time because they tried other strategies first.
Yeah, I think Rad, if they hadn't had found Curt12, they would already been well within the central position of this circle, beating out Falcon, beating out Road to Glory, some of these other teams in the general vicinity, and able to get a much better spot. So I think at some point they're going to need to deal with Curt12, either rotating way further away from the Milta City, or I don't know, or trying to kind of force Curt12, putting a little bit of pressure onto them to stop meddling with their rotation.
Exactly, and Falcons really just gatekeeping away, forcing their location past there. Curt12, of course, are taking up that church compound, as we kind of suggested they may do, coming slowly into the zone. It is still a comfortable position on the edge of this northern side, but the zone very much in a position where it can shift either way of these four
Yeah.
sides of the circle is going to shift, depending on where it goes, down towards the south to Ferry Pier.
Ooh.
Going to now, I think, favor the likes of Triple and Squad 2 are focused already up towards Quarry. I actually really admire the position right now of potentially NIGMA of YALLA, both controlling these Quarry hills. Now 90th also doing the same, eyeing up those teams such as Pride and R8 up above North.
So the hard thing about this circle is there's about 50% just open fields, right? Like we see Road to Glory just driving on through. And then we see a lot of just little rolling hills and a lot of, like you saw, Erangel 2.0 that you mentioned, kind of newly updated. GEEKAY, Satan, though, is gonna be right. Just catching the end rotations here. But all these teams, they're all in their vehicles and they're all starting to rotate. So the teams that already put the priority on getting into that central position are going to be able to clean up on some of these weaker rotating teams versus the ones in the cars. I mean, it's pretty hard to shoot at people while you're driving by at, however fast they're going.
I mean, Falcons, they know alongside here, Rad, alongside the only one, that they all have to get a position in zone now, and it is risky to make those rotations, but doing so in those separate vehicles, spreading apart, I think, and keeping that distance from each other really was the crucial part to Falcons all getting a spot inside of this zone. I mean, the only one certainly did struggle to find those punishes because they also were, of course, rotating, tried to stop down on that ferry pier to try punish potentially their Falcons, but instead it amounts to nothing. Road to Glory also stepping in on those Erangel 2.0 hills, whereas I think on the other hand of that, Triple out all of these teams in the south are kind of losing out on the most here, Monica, because they had the best opportunity to take a position like RTG have right now, which would be very favorable for them, close enough to the center to avoid hard shifts onto phase 4. But instead actually give all of those locations up to where Triple have to make either a wide flank or fight through these teams later.
I do like Road to Glory's position much better than Falcons because they have the overlook into the open field. So they can collect the information of who's rotating where, who had a fight, and what. And there's a lot of little shacks and dips down there. And it looks like they're starting to mobilize to get on in after they've got that information. Versus Falcons, they're in these little trenches. Yes, it gives you cover, but it's also covering your eyesights onto that same area. So going into this next circle, if it does go on the northern side, they're not going to be really having any inklings of where teams are at and are going to be blindly rotating into the next one.
And I have a feeling, right, as you said, that phase 4, phase 5 is going to be kind of that more hectic kind of play style from a lot of these teams. They all have their locations right now that they feel comfortable in, but it is the fact that in phase 3, we still haven't really decided, Monica, where these teams are going to end up. As we mentioned earlier, there are just so many locations on this next shift that it could go to.
We are waiting here as the blue zone does just envelop, and it does come down onto the southern side this time. So Falcons, I was a little worried for them if it went up to the northern. They are just hugging it, but I don't think they can see right into the central position where NIGMA Galaxy is at. But SKYROCKET, they won the last Erangel. They see Curd 12 crashing up onto the back end doors, and it's the 1 versus 2 from RRR that's able to put Curd 12 really in a weak position.
In 2 already down, Curd 12 now trying to find a position, but it's just too late, too little. In the SKYROCKET, 4 clean eliminations for themselves, catch out that northern entrance, but it's a lot more work to do. They have a big gauntlet of teams to go through to that southern shift, and I really do worry for those teams coming in past that quarry entrance, past the open side, as you said.
Major Pride, they're gonna lose one already. It's gonna be Milky Way. That seems to be ultimate theme of Major Pride, and even teams like NIGMA Galaxy losing one a little bit too early, right? But YALLA, they're gonna be waiting on this side, and we see YALLA in Major Pride engage a lot on Erangel because they're coming from the same side, right? North Dordrepool or Severny. Now, say with the Scar, popping some shots over in the direction of some of the members of Major Pride, but I think the beauty of playing the edge right here is they have all the room behind them to continue to rotate around and find an easier entry into the circle.
All of the teams, though, as much as they made those big, busy rotations early on to that next shift, it is still a calculated approach that is required in Major Pride. doing that calculation for now, working out the numbers, as they do find that one elimination onto YALLA. And the next one really that you're looking for Major Pride is to kind of wrap around that Quarry side, but they need to do so fast, and eliminating YALLA is crucial in doing it swiftly. Twisted Minds also going to find out one member of SKYROCKET, but Easy will be the first to strike blood, and now hiding underneath the edge of the car, can barely open a door in time, will get inside, grabs Dami as well, but they lose Rip. Triple R still so low as well, and as much as Easy is done, it is a disaster on the backline of SKYROCKET that does need sorted.
How does this happen in this region? It's just so one compound, 4 teams, right? And we saw it in the previous Erangel match, but Ana is going to be the last one left standing from his team up on the stairwell as resources, grenades are coming out. When you exercise, Salam actually does damage to himself as Twisted Minds, though, is found out by the last grenade coming out from Rip.
Got a bit too greedy for that final nade, got blown into smithereens, but GEEKAY are here, also versus NIGMA. As you said, that 4th man into the fight, and Lord will already be now soloed out as they lose 2 very, very quickly into the engagement. Freak will be there to support, but NIGMA, and sorry, should I say GEEKAY here, have already secured themselves a space in the zone, have already secured themselves a space inside the compound. And for NIGMA, they do need to now give up more space overall where they really can't afford to.
They're all stacked up in this one building, right? And GEEKAY, they're the stuff of nightmares of everybody within this lobby. Free Kaza, last desperate grenades trying to slow the push coming out from GEEKAY. They are just a little bit further, but the circle is going to center on them for the 2nd consecutive time. This is going to be the hottest compound in the entire circle. Major Pride going out in 13th position.
RTG still on this kind of more eastern flank here are beginning to be in their own fight versus Falcons, but has cooled down for our 40 remaining players for the moment, as the Zerkel has centralized also in towards SKYROCKET, in towards NIGMA and GEEKAY. Is GEEKAY, we check a look back at a replay of how they got there. I mean, Big Oars, you up a 360 by a 360 180 twist, but it's a bit too fancy for the eyes of GEEKAY, and they shut them down.
That's one thing we can count on. It's never missing any sort of vehicle mishap in PMPL Arabia. Glad to catch that one, but Twisted Minds really hurting after losing their player. Road to Glory hugging this hillside, and finally this engagement is happening between Falcons, right? We saw them come here way before, and now Falcons being pressured on the back-end side by the blue zone are trying to engage and take the position away from Road to Glory.
RTG still slowly navigating this fight, but so are Falcons, and of course the utility. Keep in mind, Monica, a lot of the smokes, a lot of these vehicles in utility such as nades going to be used early on here by a slow fight like this, and it will hinder both of these teams later on, so both very aware that they need to try speed this up a bit, which is why you can see Volt go for that aggressive play, finds the one, will not be punished by Yusuf, as Volt there finding oversteps, so not appreciating realistically Yusuf's spot over, but despite that was being surrounded and unknown, now also going to be angled out by Freak, as it is all of the RTG members out, is 90th also stuck in the rock to fight versus R8.
Really, it was Volt left as a sacrificial lamb trying to quell the anger of Falcons as the other 2 of his members of his team, like Unknown, went a little bit further into the circle, but it was the likes of NIGMA Galaxy, everyone else to take them out of the match. 90th minute, still needing to clear out their back end sides with the RA, but VISTA Gaming, this is team at the very bottoms, and oh my goodness, Highland Wolf, open fields and trying to push on across.
It's another really difficult, I think, positionally wise zone for these teams to play. I mean, yes, they all have kind of great locations for now based on what could be argued as a very difficult zone to find a good position, but outside of this next shift, it really is going to be how do you navigate it is the only one now trying to contest Falcons, but they're on the low ground, they're using utility, almost find out powerful, send in another one as they try to also recover their backline, which has been being bullied by the likes of 90 if they're still in their back.
The only one caught in a really poor position, 90th minute, being able to have the singular eye lines down at them, as Falcons also can just come a little bit more on the left-hand side and really cut out any sort of breathing room. But the only one to send Luffy a little bit closer to Falcons, maybe any resources like grenades if he has any left in his little backpack. But the only one, I mean, this is becoming so much more dire as they're in not only downhill, but outside of the circle.
Enigma finally being oppressed by GEEKAY 2 is there. Turn may have come. Lord does flush out very quickly one with the Uzi, but switches back to the auto. We won't be able to find the second. Now GEEKAY Hope Guy stepping in, using the smokes, blocking out the vision as they begin their slow ascent forward. And more smokes laid out by NIGMA, blinding out GEEKAY, slowing them down. It's the crucial art that NIGMA are trying to draw, because SKYROCKET, keep in mind, are also looking for the fight, but cut away by Lord. Lord may have actually just stopped, though, a crucial knock onto GEEKAY or two, because that was also an A going straight into the window to Ragnar. They'll be thanking the lucky stars for that.
This is what a team like Falcons would love to happen, right? You see the kill feed lighting up, all these teams being dwindled down to 2 or 3 players while they keep all 4 players left alive. SKYROCKET, though, I mean, they were hovering here waiting to capitalize on this fight on, you know, third party onto GEEKAY and NIGMA Galaxy. Both these two teams, though, they got eyes in the back of their heads as Lord lobbies a grenade in the direction of SKYROCKET, but looks like just only getting one.
Only gets one. If it went over the wall, it would have gotten another. Salam will also move away as SKYROCKETs make the push. He uses the smoke road in. Lord cannot see them no more. Triple R will also get underneath, and is the only one remaining. Keep in mind, Lord, he's stuck between 2 full teams, angrily looking down at this only location of a compound inside this phase 6. Lord cannot tack it out in a nade, so there's too much.
GEEKAY, the Titans, they are the kings of Erangel, but now put down to only 3, but they've come back and won with even fewer numbers. But a 3v3 between SKYROCKET, who is really just playing out of their minds today to get into Super Weekend, are now opening this fight with GEEKAY.
SKYROCKETs, they find one, but it's at a trade, at a cost, as Ragnar won't be able to find a return, though, for an extra piece, and will be caught outside, will be caught against the blue, is GEEKAY, will be flushed away. But now, SKYROCKETs, they need to survive, they need to keep themselves up as hope. GEEKAY does take out Easy Fair, also Triple R, knocked by Falcons too, and you can see that SKYROCKETs just as swiftly, also too far into GEEKAY, got caught outside, punished away, and down to our final 3 teams.
Falcons still having that higher little bit of elevation here, with 3 a little bit more spread out than the rest. 90th all kind of clumped up onto themselves, with only 1 player of NASR just crawling in, trying to stay as quiet and incognito as possible. So we're seeing a 3v3 that may erupt very soon on this hillside. Remember, both these teams, they've really committed to this fight earlier on in the match as well. So I don't really foresee any or a lot of smokes, grenades, you know, even a flashbang being utilized in this space, because it's literally just the grasses they're using as cover.
And it's an excellent observation, actually, because these teams have been here for nigh on the last half of the match. So there is very little left that they have. You can see no even first aid now on the hands of Damar. But we'll find Tam Tam, and that's a quick shot down, but you can see immediately punished for opening fire. There, though, Ahmad saves now the fire onto Damar himself. They will clean up the 2 eliminations, and it's unfortunate for 90th because they needed these points, but of course, so do Falcons to get in onto the Super Weekend themselves, as they're looking for their second return in, looking for that final member of 90th as they are crawling in.
We have 2 solos versus the 3 of Falcons. They're looking for the worms in the grass to take on back to their nest in Hazan. Again, 90th minute. The 90th minute and the Falcons are 2 of those bottom teams, right? They each have qualified for 1 Super Weekend each, versus NASR has been in both. So more is on the line for Falcons 90th minute. So 90th minute, Yazan, he's just hoping that Falcons can take out the other soul in the match first. And the buggy does come around. He does spot him out, and the shots are laid out.
In 90th, Falcons going to claim them away. Now only going to be NASR. And NASR, Himam, an excellent job to second place. Should just try to give this over to the play zone. Yes, it will be able to. Falcons not going to get a point. Falcons, though, do claim, despite that, the chicken dinner of the third game of the day. And this is a crucial boost to, I think, Falcons particularly. Of course, 90th minute to getting that third spot. But Falcons, they have looked a bit dicey, I'll admit, on that first week of play here at the PMPL Arabia. Second week, they really turned it up. They're 125 points in the Super Weekend. Now, the third week, it's been a slow ramp up to get the engine started. But if the rest of Falcons can keep up this performance and show us a bit more of what they showed last weekend, I'm looking really forward to seeing what they can bring.
Seems like Falcons and SKYROCKET are very much conjoined together, right? When one does well, the other one is, we can't be shown up by the other team. We got to do well too. And we see those two kind of really vying against each other at the bottom of the standings, of course. But these are two teams that didn't qualify the first weekend, like you said. They did make it into the second. And so far, these are two teams that have really stolen the spotlight so far at the beginning of this week.
Yeah, 20 points overall by SKYROCKET. 12 eliminations coming through from them, tying that of Falcons to their chicken dinner. NASR, though, 12, of course, placement points, getting themselves to 17 as well. Total at 90th minute, doing an excellent job to get into those 15 points too. I think it's crucial to note that at least despite not that many points, VISTA still there on the first page for those 4 points. They too needing to get into that Super Weekend. I think I'm worried about more so the likes of these teams lower down, such as I think COR12 of VISTA, these two together, because their mentality must be very strained, considering that even though CORD made it into that last Super Weekend, and we'll get to see them on the second half of the page too, but they didn't get that many points in that Super Weekend overall.
Yeah, it was only about 75 points that they got the entire Super Weekend out of 15 matches. So really not a lot of points to be found. And if the 8th position on that match rankings was 4 points found from VISTA, I'm very scared to see the second page and seeing where these teams did fall. And like you said, COR12, 1 point found this entire match.
Exactly. It's a really disappointing result by Kurt to get into a better position to qualify, of course. And keep in mind, Kurt, Monaco, they're another one of those teams inside of Group A. So they only have one more match to play today. They've already played 3 so far. And those 3 that we've seen from them, there's been snippets of good work in terms of eliminations. But outside of that, no good game as a whole.
The first day is so crucial in setting the tone and the mentality for the second day.
Yeah.
Because if you're a team that did nothing, not nothing, but like didn't perform in the first day, you're really on the chopping block on the second day. Because teams that need points are going to identify you as an easy target and kind of easy points, right? They're going to go after you, especially if they're a team right next to you. And they're, if they don't allow you in the Super Weekend, that elevates their position in the standings.
Yeah, and I think that's crucial to note. Of course, CORD definitely going to need to not only elevate their points, but elevate their standings socially in the hierarchy that is the overall standings of these first 2 days. And I think that looking towards them, there's a lot of pressure because now Miramar is a map that I think particularly COR12 and arguably VISTA has struggled with, but we will have to see if they can tack it out after what will be the best of moments of our previous game and a short break. We are back for what will be our final Miramar game of the first day here at week 3 of the PMPL Arabia full split. But it's not just myself, Highland and Monica, of course. It's again the Oppo Reno 7 Pro 5G with the upgraded performance and upgraded fun. Celebrate your winning spirit with the brand new Oppo Reno 7 Pro 5G for designated smartphones for PUBG Mobile, Middle East and Africa Esports 2022. Of course, keep in mind, Monica, that as we jump not only into our game ourselves, you at home can jump in-game into the Grizzly Bear card collection. With only 2 more days to go, join the card collection draw and win outfits. There's a chance to get all the pieces of an item in one go.
Of course, we are only 2 days left that the Grizzly Bear is available in-game, so make sure you guys get a piece of it while you have the chance, because it's going away after that. And then you can tell all your friends that you got the exclusive skin when they ask you where you got it from.
Look, I know where I got it from. I got it from the card collection, and I'm looking at those bears to represent. I mean, look, I've got my own bear. I've got it. I promise. Look, I've got my own little bear logo as well. I bought it. I know, right? I've got it there. Like, it's a little bear.
Like real
little bear on the side of my chest. I hide it well, but this Grizzly Bear card collection that we represent here, Monica, and these teams, of course, as they jump in, I think a few of these teams needing a bit more style when it comes to the points overall. I'm kind of looking, as we said, towards the break, towards kind of Code 12, towards VISTA as well, as 2 of these teams who really, I think, just haven't had, I think, that consistent really showing that we really want to see from them.
One team I really want to see more is CONQUEROR, right? Like, they're one of the teams that, I mean, they can play, right? And Miramar is definitely one of their stronger maps, so hopefully they do better this one. But they came in with, I want to say it was a 1 point in the first match today, similarly very low points in the second game today, and then they were off that last one. So they're coming after a very long extended break, and hope they can make something out of today.
I mean, CONQUEROR is an excellent read, actually, because I think that CONQUEROR coming into this week were expected to do a lot better than they did in that second week. Of course, barely missing out, right, in that 17th position at the end of the 2 stages of 2 days, should I say, of week 2 on Sandhawks week. And I think for Miramar, you always look back towards teams like not only Twisted Minds, but CONQUEROR too, as these squads are so dominant specifically on this map. And the pressure now coming onto them to make that weekend after, I think, what was a very disappointing showing. And like Falcons, we expected such a veteran organization to not really have to be in this position where they need to qualify into the Super Weekend to make it.
Yeah, it's a little, I would say, embarrassing for kind of themselves, especially to be represented by such a big organization. It's like, wow, you didn't make a single super, or not a single, but you didn't make a single, sorry, what am I saying? A super weekend. I keep saying super and everything. But for them not to make it, you know, that's just prize pool that you're not going to be in striking distance of, right? It's less kind of screen time to be competing and against some of these teams.
Exactly.
So it's just less experience that you're getting that versus the other teams that are in the lobby time and time again are getting.
I mean, this zone, it really does like that southwestern end. It's gone down there again, and it's going to be, I think, a lot of these teams making, as we said, those earlier rotations. I would argue that it's going to be also, if you are one of those northern teams, however, later of a rotation. So you do have those squads that do, like Falcons, love to end up going towards Cruz de Val. You also had the likes of VISTA, which would be alongside R8, heading into half the end of the patron and coming back down again. That's really the curious kind of thing I'm looking towards these teams about, is having re-navigate the entrance back into this phase.
Look at Mikado. Okay, so we have GEEKAY is not playing in this match. So, these teams are like, okay, it's free. So our opportunistic teams, that's like 4K, like SKYROCKET, who we saw them go into open Monte Nuevo when it was Twisted Minds wasn't here. I think we have 3 different teams all landing in Picado. It's 4K, SKYROCKET, and VISTA Gaming.
I mean, okay, so it used to be actually R8 and Falcons who used to contest inside
Yeah.
Picardo. Both of them aren't here. Instead, what we have is Vista and SKYROCKET, two teams that need to qualify. We also have what looks to be NASR Hamam dodging out Yusuf for now. I have a feeling, oh, they're coming back. No, they don't. Hamam has the skills. And Falcon, it feels bad, man. But SKYROCKET, as we jump back onto Picardo, they will continue to loot up, which will be, I suppose, a scarce looting phase for the now.
Man, is this a classic match or what? We got I mean, imagine what these teams were thinking in their head or their comms are like as they're dropping. Like, okay, we're gonna go Picardo. GEEKAY isn't in here.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that 8 other parachutes that I see also coming within the city? So this is pretty dire, right? These are all 3 teams that are at the very, very bottom, except for SKYROCKET. But how do you get out of the situation? Because there's only so many vehicle spawns in this general area.
Right, and that's the issue is, I think for at least 4K, they have an excellent opportunity with Darwi on this casino building. Now, Darwi's going to be very much a big angle towards him. I also like angles that are very high as well. Power is, you better show me some good stuff. I'm watching you. I really hope this camera stays on as is. I want it to. He's taking off. There he goes. Oh my days. It's a disaster. He's not flying. He's falling into the tree. He's going, but he's up. Finally, he makes it as is off, and he's on a journey to where we do not know. But Power, they are certainly up towards that northern end, and he lands with a graceful swing, but he's still going over the top. He's not quite done yet. He's flying.
Come on. You got it.
Almost. Hey, 10 landing.
Okay, this is like the movie Dumbo, right? Where he had the really big ears, everyone made fun of him, and then he suddenly can fly, and it's such a miracle, and it's so crazy, and he just did it. But I mean, I want to see a team. I don't just for the memes, right? I just want to see a team use a glider for an actual rotation. Wouldn't that be so funny? But lately, we saw it this weekend, right? They've only gone maybe 50 meters because it's so hard to drive.
I feel like the gliders are just something that these teams, they just haven't figured out. They just haven't talked to them and sat down and had a discussion with the glider and said, look, we can work things out. We can be friends if we just cooperate together. And it all starts, with being nice to the glider. I mean, if we treat the gliders, Monica, with disrespect, I mean, of course they're going to crash. I mean, we have to be nice to these people.
Be nice, give it some words of affirmation,
Exactly.
body positivity,
it's all about positive
and it will treat
vibes,
you well back. Yeah, it's just treat others how you want to be treated, and maybe the glider will work out for you.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny, though, on the other hand, to watch people crash, so maybe I shouldn't have given that tip, because it is... I mean, the tree crashes, I remember watching it in PMGC, and it is quite hilarious to watch teams try to navigate, particularly in team fights, or get caught out on rotation of the glider, and then panic, and then mess it up.
I mean, the glider, maybe one day, right? We need a couple more YouTube tutorials of how it'll work out. But for now, these teams are going to stick to the good old-fashioned trucks and vehicles ascending up the mountains, Curd 12. They really need to make something of themselves because they really haven't shown that much today. But they're going to have one of the higher elevation areas in this circle.
Of course, all of these teams beginning to rotate in a little bit towards close to that phase 1. And phase 1 is on its closure in. I also would argue that as these teams do rotate, I'm seeing a lack, quite frankly, today of the, as Imperium would call it, party bus. I mean, I still call it the beep beep bus. Okay, you just, unless they remove the horn off the wheel, like I will forever keep calling it the beep beep bus because it's just something that like. It's just ingrained in me. It's like if you removed it out of me, it's like removing my soul, Monica.
It's like when you have a car with a lot of substance, right? That it has the most girly, like baby horn.
I would run the pink horn, to be honest. That like
you would?
I would run that. Like if there was a skin and I got the pink skin of the beep beep bus, like I would.
The safflower one.
I know. It's all about pink power, pink flower power. Exactly.
Okay, if I'm ever in game in Miramar and I hear a beep beep with some pink bus rolling up behind me, I know it's
you know it's me. Like,
you know it's me. Like
you know it's me coming over the hill.
Well, these teams here though, Highland Wolf, they're still at this big stalemate. And I think the ones that are in a better position is going to be 4K, right? They're kind of on the edges here. You don't want to be the team in the middle with Vista, right? Because they have no hope of exiting this at all because they have 8 sets of eyes watching onto them. But maybe whoever's on the edges, like SKYROCKET, like 4K, and then wait to see which side the fight breaks out. And then that third team can come in for that third party.
I mean, you talk about third teams. There is a fourth team currently heading into
gosh.
Picardo right now. I'm a bit concerned in terms of the exit potential of the likes of SKYROCKET, Vista, 4K here. Is the reason why we say it is so difficult to navigate out of Picardo, navigate around it even, is because of these kind of more open areas on the edges of Picardo. Now you can see SKYROCKET sending 3 players. They do leave 1 for now inside of the building as they do find that secondary Jeep and will, I assume, go for that rescue mission back in. But for Triple, there's going to need to be more than just a rescue mission because they've already lost 1 player, and Triple R, well, is extinct as Vista will lose 1 knock, but an easy revive should clean it up.
I think it was a smart play from SKYROCKET. They could have left with all 4 in the same truck, but if there was anyone set up right on the edges there, they could have all blown that car to smithereens. So they left 1 just in case there was somebody shooting. That 1 could provide defense and cover for the rest to make their grand escape, and that was definitely the risk that actually proved okay for them because they're going to escape the city with 3. So I think the best situation that they could have come out of.
In this zone as well, a big southern shift, Monica. It's gone down towards Chumacera. Kind of a trickier shift, I think, in terms of the elevations once more now. These are more of the big hills, you could argue, towards the south side. And I think it really lies on these compounds here. Now, Triple already have 1 in their hands. YALLA are looking to try overtake that compound for themselves. You can see the beginnings of that fight happen. Triple, you're really looking at them continuing to spread out like they are doing and creating that line of power, really stopping YALLA from finding those flank points, because flanking is going to be something I think a lot of these teams, when they're approaching these positions, will try to naturally do, as Leif, again, is going to be that 1 man on the edge.
YALLA, we've seen them do this really well, right? They have the 3 and they always send 1 out wide. We saw them catch the likes of POWR, I think, off guard in doing so. Like YALLA, they're really the kings of playing the angles, but Clever here might be able to put a stop to this rotation on this side though, but he's going to be all by himself and none of his teammates had the visualization to give him some support. So he's bumped by himself down below, but he's got bigger fish to fry and worry about as they ascend over and he gets traded out.
As you can see, utilizing the edge, trying to play for a wider game versus Triple, and as a result, they can draw players in, but not really understand for Triple's side how many players are actually coming over to contest, and they thought it might have only been 1. Unfortunately, Triple find out the hard way, and they will lose their lives. And reduced down to a trio will have to, I imagine, give up this compound, as Push will have to now be on the escape. It's a tricky escape indeed, as the smokes will come through, and YALLA seem to be on the chase for now, as they won't really allow here Triple to move away. But I don't think they've got a choice. Triple are already out of there, apart from Wizard, who is the exception. He is unfortunately facing the full wrath of YALLA, and it is not a nice kind of wrath.
Triple Esports in just such a dire position because they come into this match in 17th position with 4 points, right? YALLA a little bit above them and 11 points up in 12th position. But we have your another favorite glider. I think this is it. If you want to make a great, so. Come on. They're like, no. We have YALLA right behind us. This is not the time to be memeing around with the glider.
Look, I mean, it would certainly get them higher up, to be fair, in terms of these mountains, because yes, they are very low, but I 100% agree. I mean, the glider is memeing as it is. It would be a bit of a meme to honestly take it just now and get shot out of the sky by all of these other teams already in that lower position. A few of these teams still keep in mind to come into the zone too. Now we've got POWR, Falcons, and also R8 coming from the east, north, and western side respectively. As we can see, a lot of those teams are more towards the center. Particularly actually surprising here that they are down towards that roadside though, because I would have expected a few more of these teams to be kind of playing towards maybe Chumacera, potentially also hoping that by staying in the center of the zone, more south of Chumacera, this helps them on this next shift, but it won't, because it does go back to Chumacera, and suddenly these teams will be on their route to that location once more.
Yeah, I'm really surprised, just like you said, that more teams didn't commit to that Shumasera hillside, because you see how much water is in play in this circle. More than likely, it's going to come back mainland, right? And a lot of those teams
Right.
on that southern side, especially Herd 12, like YALLA, who really committed down south, are now having themselves rotating through multiple teams, actually to the horror of YALLA, now having the entire team of OOREDOO Thunders rotating right in front. And this is going to just really just put out most of the options that YALLA had to try to rotate in.
And yeah, still keep in mind, very much on the edge of this zone. We'll find out one nade onto Hamco as it begins the fight successfully.
Yes.
Another will be sent very far and wide down as the revive also coming through brings down the secondary member of OOREDOO to about half HP. YALLA finding that third nade crucially will eliminate Hamco completely, knock down Smoke, and suddenly OOREDOO in a real world of trouble where very swiftly the tides have turned. Saif dodging out the nade of the OOREDOO Thunder zone, and now stuck inside of the building. Two members together. Saif crawling in from one. Life on the backside again, trying to flank around, drawing out the bullets as Hassan will be met by YALLA. But it's YALLA who, even though losing life, knocked down, find the success. 6 eliminations.
If there's one thing we can say about YALLA is they know how to take their compound fights, and they've given such a world of hurt to even a top team like GEEKAY in Bootcamp and Sandhawk. So here, we had no kind of doubt that they're able to win this fight, especially having two members of OOREDOO Thunder knocked in that one building. It was so just, I think, bad position for OOREDOO Thunders, because that building is just a complete open hole top. You know, the rooftop has caved in. It was just two nades lobbed through the top, able to knock out half the team, and then it was just the push from YALLA.
And that was the problem I think OOREDOO really made, is they tried to revive in the same location, but they lost one member, as Twisted Mind's also going to lose one. But it just makes it so much easier, I think, in terms of the rest of YALLA being able to position their nades in roughly the same location, a bit higher perhaps, but the kind of direction the same, the velocity only change, and that's why they were so quickly able to land so many nades on top of the hands of OOREDOO. And a mistake like that surely will be something he will not make again, as Twisted Minds a big jump through on the bike as they make a desperate attempt inside the blue. Ragnarok taking the shots, but will, I believe, get inside. But it's going to be a very separated Twisted Minds here, as Anas is in the zone, yes, but nowhere near the rest of their team.
Out into the blue, everyone looking at the circle as it dwells over onto the eastern side, to the absolute delight of a team like Pride. But R8, they're going to find themselves pretty out onto the edges, right outside, just down below Major Pride. And Major Pride, they have this huge elevation. They have one knocked right now from R8, and this is a team that you said was super frag heavy, so they're really going to go after these quick points.
And for Major Pride, have actually been a bit slow, a bit quiet in terms of that frag heavy potential that they've had in the second super weekend. Nomi will look for that second one. Maybe you've heard is they're going to send potentially one the other way now, and look to catch out Prestige and SK Tunt will go in between them both though, and survives instead. So for Major Pride, a long route though, as you said also, this zone gone towards the eastern end. It's very tricky in terms of navigating this. You can't really make those wider flanks because it comes into the choke point of that roadside, and teams will be able to catch you. So instead, it's going to have to be more of a deliberate head-on approach. And for YALLA, actually, who already have a position on that edge, can actually gatekeep and punish potentially a lot of these other teams if they are informed to do so.
Major Pride had that almost chicken dinner in the first Miramar today, but it was a blue zone just to catch them caught with nowhere left to go on the bottom hill side of the mountain, which gave the chicken dinner NIGMA Galaxy. So Major Pride, they know how to play Miramar, right? There was just unfortunate turn of events for them. Alush flushing out a member of SKYROCKET. So SKYROCKET, glorious day so far found for them, but they're losing, they're down to only one player here. And FALCONS looking to clean up on VISTA Gaming. And
this is what we said, YALLA have the potential to, as we say, punish these teams, making those rotations later on in. Now, Boomper will be knocked by POWR from a very long shot. Won't surely give that up though once more. SKYROCKET, they're eliminated as we head on in now to the fight of VISTA and Falcons along the churchyard. Another crucial position coming in. And for now, VISTA having the control, but I feel like a lot of more could have been done here. Is that's what we're looking for here. They double nade onto Falcons, using that high ground of the church to be able to capitalize on Falcons coming up, because if they get inside the compound, it's all but over for VISTA. And keeping them down on the low, on the moat of the church side castle, that's what they're looking for. That's what they're looking to do. But Dino falling down opens now the door for Falcons as they are making work, making efforts, but Miramar immediately flushed away, never alone, the only one alive, will at least confirm one elimination point, but the rest of their team are already bleeding away.
Bleeding away, and in the miniature map, we have 4K ascending up onto the mountain, looking to clean up as well in third party onto this fight. VISTA hearing the vehicles here, identifying this, and now this is the reset that Falcon really wants, right? 4K now garnering all the attention from VISTA Gaming, and now it's going to be only Sunrise left alive from VISTA. So, man, caught with their pants down and in the worst positioning in the circle.
And Major Pride as well in that south end. An absolute catastrophe versus YALLA in the elimination feed as our northern fight continues regardless. VISTA trying to survive as the zone will succumb every single one of them. And it's a mad dash trying to get back inside safety. But VISTA won't be able to survive at all as 4K now have the onus on them to keep themselves up on a knock, taking the damage. Will carry Darwi out like a true champ that he is, but I don't think it's going to be for long.
VISTA Gaming saying hasta la vista to the lobby, out in 14th position, I want to say. And man, this is a team that really needs a win somewhere here, because they haven't made a single Super Weekend Alt Tournament. POWR, they're just on the southern edges here. Major Pride, only a 2-man left alive, and crawling ever closer to this team, but any of these three teams actually in the general area are going to be in the circle.
YALLA continuing. They were trying to fight versus Twisted. They will get it, but it was a very dicey fight indeed. They lost 2 of their players, and look at that zone. It's gone completely the opposite end of YALLA. It's CONQUEROR. We said and we highlighted that you have the strengths on Miramar. This is a dream of a rotation shift for them.
YALLA actually up to 10 eliminations found already in this match, and we're barely at the 20-minute mark. 4K, after having and clearing out the compound from VISTA Gaming, now have the attention of Falcons as both these two teams. I mean, they're out of the circle. They're all both on the northwestern edge. The Molotov does heavy damage as now Conquer Iraq. They've been quiet this game, but now are joining in and find a knock themselves onto 4K.
And it's all about those rotations. That's what they're trying to find here, Monica. And you can see, unfortunately, 4K crossing the road. Anaconda will lose their life for it, but so does the bloodbath on the south end continue. Major Pride, Milky Way, Nomi, unfortunately cannot get caught out in the middle like that, and there they will fall. POWR also trying to make that other side flank to YALLA doing the same.
Man, YALLA has been fighting for their lives this entire match, as POWR is now encroaching very close to them. So after taking out the likes of the teams right in front of them, now turning their sights onto POWR down below, just a little bit further into the circle than them. But they've got POWR right where they want them. One is going to be knocked and bleeding on out, as we do see 4K finally eliminated out of the match.
YALLA, POWR gonna lose their lives to 12. Elimination here, I believe. It might have actually been stolen there. Yet NASR took it away onto Al-Hahi, actually, excuse me. So we'll take away that 12th elimination from YALLA crew. Is now live. Going forward, Aziz will be lost, and Kante taking an extra ticket of blue. Is YALLA just going to drive over their components? Is life disrespect almost, but it wasn't style indeed. Is NASR Batika going to finish off the next? And RTG, it's about these teams on the edge who have been quiet, maybe, yes, but 4 eliminations in RTG, 2 players alive as we check back towards the replay of Major Pride and K12.
On the hillside, this happened quite a while ago. It was a couple of minutes of Major Pride. I mean, you said they were such a frag-heavy team, and they heard you when you said maybe they haven't really been showing up this weekend, but they did collect one before they went out. The circle is delighting NASR, just laughing as they get this circle. Look how much control they have. They're going to be able to keep CONQUEROR from coming in at more on the northern side, and they're being caught out in the open, coming across the roadside. CONQUEROR, I mean, I was hoping for them for a chicken dinner, but this is a bad hand of cards they've been dealt.
And CONQUEROR, a big shift down towards NASR here, puts now actually NASR in the hands of POWR, as they potentially get themselves a chicken dinner, giving over to them. YALLA just driven into the next match, is Road to Glory will take them their 5th elimination for their own hands. Down to 2 though, and I don't imagine here RTG can really do too much. It's really up to CONQUEROR and NASR to decide the victor.
Road to Glory putting the end to the rampage that was YALLA. I want to see how many eliminations they found, because surely it's the most in this lobby. NASR still not giving CONQUEROR a single inch into the circle, even though they were able to get the reset on one of their players knocked across the roadside, still all 4, but they've got the low ground and they've got the out of circle positioning. Humam just coming over the top, gets the knock onto one of CONQUEROR, and once again, they're put down into dwindling numbers.
RTG falling down to the blue zone. There goes J9 Volt making a Hail Mary push, but it is to no expense of NASR taking that elimination point away. CONQUEROR, they have a high hill to climb, metaphorically and literally, as Gallagher very, very low indeed, barely keeping themselves alive. Maybe the knock, of course, onto NASR in the back does provide some extra support for them. Humam forced away in CONQUEROR. They are making a slow climb, but that nade right in onto 2, that will silence them away. Now Rever so low as well. Groza all but will fall, and that will be NASR's claim to victory, as they'll claim the entirety of CONQUEROR.
Man, NASR, they really just showed up, and CONQUEROR, I mean, really well fought out for them. I want to say they're so scrappy, right? Even their players getting knocked multiple times, they're still able to get themselves all up to 4, except for the very, very end where the blue was encompassing them, and they just couldn't recover from that. But great game from CONQUEROR, and they really needed this game.
Look, I mean, CONQUEROR, they get that 2nd position, they get those points. NASR, though, you have to give it to them. They got that zone in the last phase, but they made it work for them. And I think it was an excellent finish off through by them to make sure that they got that position to the win. Also, keep in mind that last game, NASR were surviving to that 2nd place again. So they're pretty high when it comes to the standings to qualifying to that Super Weekend now.
I really like how balanced these teams can be, right? It's not always just one team that's always dominating, but we see actually YALLA, look, they got 8 placement points, right? So they went out in, what, 4th position, but eliminations-wise, 15's eliminations. They've been fighting for their lives since Zone 1, and they actually got the most points in this match despite only finishing in 4th place.
Exactly, and NASR, they're still getting that 7 eliminations so for themselves. And I think, to be fair, on the other hand, you are looking at not just YALLA, but on NASR, on RTG to an extent too. But I think those teams who really do need those points, as we say, the only one, this is their kind of first big game in terms of points that they were able to gather. So 13 points for them, certainly increasing the potential for them to be able to remake it back in onto this next Super Weekend. And I think particularly important for teams like the only one to make it into that Super Weekend and get these consistent points now, because they haven't had these big flashy weekends that some other teams like Falcons have had. So for Falcons, yes, they make it into the Super Weekend, but they don't need a lot more to work on. Whereas on the other hand, the only one have a lot more to do.
Something that a team that needs to do more is definitely CONQUEROR, right? They only had 2 eliminations despite finishing in 2nd. That means that their mentality was to the point that they were just, we need to win this game, and they stayed hidden until the very, very end. So a lot of, I would say they probably had a lot more opportunities to garner more elimination points, but they were playing so ultra conservative to the point that they only got 2 eliminations.
Yeah, and I think a big upset for, of course, the likes of Kurd only getting another 1 point. I mean, Skyrocket OOREDOO, a 0 point match for them. We can talk about it and we can talk about it again. We may sound like a broken record, but it is important for them to pick up points. Some of them, for now, have one more chance, of course, to get into that fifth match, get the points there, but that'll be after our best offer moments, as always, and a short break.
Get up. You're witnessing a champ in the making, fueled by your passion for greatness. Yeah, but adversity and bad situations meet us in the middle of the paths that we take it. But it's what you do after that makes men. Will you quit or will you stand up and face it? Tell me, do you have what it takes to swing back when this life asks for the fade? Can you tell me you'll adapt to the change when the punch lands and it puts you flat on your face? After you wake, will you stand up and say, get mad, hit back, lit match to the flames? Failure happens to us all, but it's how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is if you get back up when you fall. You gotta get up. Failure happens to us all, but this is how champions evolve. The only thing that matters from a loss is when you get back up when you fall. You better get up. You gotta get up. You gotta get up. I need you to get up. Get up.
Welcome to what will be our last Erangel match here at the first day of the week 3 here at the PMPL Arabia Full Split. Myself, Hannah Wolf, and Monica with you once more with, of course, the Oppo Reno 7 Pro 5G. The upgraded performance and upgraded fun. Celebrate your winning spirit with the brand new Oppo Reno 7 Pro 5G, the designated smartphones for PUBG Mobile, Middle East, and Africa Esports 22, alongside, of course, our energy drinks partner for all the action. You need that energy, and none other than Monster Energy, our official energy drinks partner themselves. Monica, I've got it, okay? I thought that these teams need a little bit of pick me up, and you were talking about the overall. I'm going to show it later because we have to skip to the overall standings right now. But I think as we check out these top teams, okay, NASR, okay, fair enough, they're in top. SKYROCKET, they're looking pretty solid. They're probably through. FALCONS, fair enough, also probably through too. I'm thinking as we get down towards those next pages, so these teams, we need like a little bit of like support, okay? And they needed like a mascot to make them feel better and to make them feel empowered. So what I got was like this little fox friend, and I can put him like on the side of my shoulder. So when I like cast, you know, he's he might fall off, so I'm kind of scared. And then he might see he's falling off. He's a little bit of a mischievous one, but I thought I would get like I thought I'd get the mascot, you know, so I'll try keep him on the side of my shoulder as we get to the next page.
It's like the, you know, it's like the grizzly bear. That's the same shoulder the grizzly bear
This is what I was thinking, right? Like, so I was thinking, like, if we got the bear, I was thinking, I mean, it could be a wolf also. It depends how you look at it. It could be like a fox, it could be like a wolf. I mean, hound wolf, you know?
Oh, is that why you have a wolf right there?
I know. I mean, he's a bit tired. He seems to be asleep.
He looks a little well loved, is what it is.
He looks a bit sleepy, to be fair. To be fair, as we check out the last page here, of course, of all of our top 20 teams, and Rod, Triple, OOREDOO, POWR, down, I think at the bottom, they definitely need some of that mascot attention. They need that empowerment because they're looking a bit difficult for points so far. I mean, POWR, OOREDOO, I think for both of these teams, I think particularly POWR, I'm more surprised about because as we check out our last Erangel match, we're going to be jumping straight on board. And I think, oh, I've lost the mascot. He's gone.
He's gone.
He's gone. He's gone off the screen. Nothing happens. I mean, he's okay.
Just like him diving off your shoulders.
Exactly. He's getting in the game. He's coming off my shoulder into the plane path and into the match. See, exactly.
Okay, where is he dropping? Can you see the trajectory of where he's dropping?
He dropped into the location yellow lamp. It's a secret location on Erangel. You may not know of it, but he's there right now. He's enjoying it.
He's like he's like the golden snitch, right, in Harry Potter. You can find him, you win the match.
Exactly, that's exactly what he's looking for. I mean, it's because you can't find him. See, he's off screen, Monica, so no one's going to know where he is, so they can't eliminate him, and then they all die to the blue zone, and then the fox or the wolf, depending on how you look at it, gets the chicken dinner, and that's the 9k IQ move. See, I've got the brain power.
That is a strategy. We're changing the rules on these players, and we didn't tell them anything that it was changing. They'd be like, "Oh, what happened?"
Yeah, exactly. But shambles aside, very nice playing path for this final game. Of course, keep in mind, Group A aren't going to be playing, so that will be SKYROCKET, Co12, R8, and I have forgotten the last one, honestly. That's a bit awkward.
It was going to be Co12, Pride, R8, and SKYROCKET.
Oh, GEEKAY. GEEKAY was the last one. I totally didn't just forget about like our best team, but it's okay.
Totally forgot.
It's okay. I was too distracted by the Fox.
They're doing too well for themselves. Exactly. We just need to just forget about them.
Exactly. This is the point. We need to show some love, as we said, like the mascot, you know, to our lower place teams, because they also need the appreciation. It's about appreciation and understanding of all of our 20 teams here.
You know who needs some appreciation? It's going to be, you know, after that last match that we had, I think it was, NASR had only played 3 matches, right?
Yeah.
They're at 49 points. SKYROCKETs had played 4 matches and we're also at 49 points. So appreciate that NASR has done the same amount of points as SKYROCKET has done in 4 matches.
Look, I think for SKYROCKETs as well, it's been an amazing first day for themselves. I didn't expect NASR would actually have as much, but of course, I think in the last 2 games in Miramar, getting that chicken dinner, NASR, they got that 2nd place on Erangel in game number 3. So very well done from them to kind of catch up on those points, keeping in mind that these teams, some of them, they didn't play actually on that first game, where SKYROCKET have already played all 4 games today. NASR have another opportunity to not only now tie them, but overtake them in a second potential Erangel good finish for them.
I really want to see that because we like rooting for like the underdog, like the ones that maybe need some highlighting, need some love. And these are the teams at the top that, you know, SKYROCKET hasn't made one of the super weekends at all. They just gloriously made it last week to their first super weekend. And NASR, I think we know they can play well, but we've seen some kind of mishaps come out from them. And here we are, we see Vista Gaming going into that South Georgia Pole area. This is usually where Major Pride lands. So once again, Vista, this is just on brand for them. Wherever it's open in the circle, that's where you're gonna find us.
OOREDOO as well, down towards the south end. Of course, free reign of Sovnovka because of, yes, SKYROCKET not playing. So excellent appreciation for the teams that aren't going to be in this game and understanding to be able to take up that main location compared to more of those kind of few village bases, those few houses just towards the north of Sovnovka. Going to have a very easy first phase as well, as it is, I think, we've probably seen this first phase, okay, Monica, a good like 5 times maybe in this tournament. I mean, I actually do like it, though. I like seeing the same phase again and again because as much as it can obviously change, phase 2, phase 3, phase 1, a lot of these teams, they kind of play the same, and it opens the door by understanding how teams play this exact zone, kind of changing that narrative, trying to find new strategies, find new ways to kind of catch teams off guard.
One thing I touched on at the very beginning of today was that having the repetitive maps allows for teams to, I guess, advance in that map much faster rather than having, hey, Erangel, then Miramar, then Sandhog. Remember when Vikindi used to be part of the show? Things like that. And then for you to go on the same map once again, you're waiting multiple matches or even like full days between them. So this way, having the 3 Erangels in a day, right? You're able to really recollect in your short-term memory. Hey, last game we went here, and this team, you know, 90th minute, right next to us had a solo sitting up on that hill behind that tree. Now, you know, maybe that was a thorn in the side for us at last game. Now let's do something about it that we can really capitalize on. But those minute details, if you're waiting forever and ever and ever between the matches, you're gonna forget those things, and it's not really gonna advance your Erangel game as quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the only one as well coming in right now in towards that first phase zone. Standard rotations by a lot of these teams. I mean, RCG, even because it was a kind playing path by all of these squads, they can go where they want, so going to be more of that northern side. I expect the likes of the only one to kind of stay about this potato hillside for the rest of this first phase, and then allow squads such as FALCONS, such as RTG, 4K to kind of come in later and try to capitalize on that position and understand the information of these teams rotating in elsewhere. Still got YALLA up towards the northern end, and we also look towards the likes of R8, of course, not playing, and Monica, YALLA, a much easier rotation. I would hope to see coming in this time as a result of this through potentially Georgia Pole too, in saying, well, if there's no R8, we can actually come around this different side.
YALLA, we also, another team that lands in the general area of R8 that YALLA has found is Major Pride. Like we always kept seeing them right next to each other in the Erangel map, but Major Pride is not in this match either. So this is going to really open up that northwestern side. But YALLA, I think they should be at the point where they need to recognize, hey, you cannot forget about the teams like Vista Gaming, like Her12, you know, those 4K even, who like to just go wherever they feel like it, that they know is going to be an open spot. So even, because YALLA should be able to recognize, yes, Major Pride, R8 are not here, but maybe we're going to have some other variable team that lands in their spot instead.
And that's the core part, and that's what we've seen the changes in these wins that the teams have played throughout each of these days in the group stage. And you even see that translated across to the super weekends, where if you know back to, of course, that second week, Monica, some of these teams dropping in certain locations, it wouldn't be natural perhaps to say to these squads because of actually the absence of other teams in that super weekend. They then use those locations as starting grounds for them instead. And so with in mind, we're on, I think, the pursuit there of triple until Dami crashed into the tree. Unfortunately, once again, the cameraman has caught it on camera, and Dami unfortunately looks a bit silly now as triple will just get away.
here exposing everybody out here. You better have your driver's license well under lock. But Twisted Minds, I mean, they are a team that we know can perform, and they're only really sitting at in the middle of the pack right now, 9th position, 25 points. So they're comfortable, right? They're not too high up. They're not, I mean, but it doesn't really matter. You just need to be in top 16. It doesn't really matter where you fall in the standings at the first part of this week, but they're not really, at least for now, in any sort of danger of falling out of the top 16.
Yeah, and I think as well, at least if you just get into the top 16, sure, you survived, but the confidence of getting high in that top 16, really setting yourself up for a strong play. And you really do, I think, have to note back to the idea, as vague as it may seem, of looking like a big kind of fish in the water of all of these other squads and saying, well, I am a scary squad. You shouldn't come and contest me because you saw that 2 days ago, I got all of these points. And that's what you're really looking for in, I think, this week more than other weeks, is that second phase does shift, because you don't want teams hot dropping on your location, especially if you're one of these teams who need those super weekend points later.
You don't want to look like the weak link, right, of a team or of the teams in the lobby. Like, you know, just give an example, when you have lions hunting in the savannas of Africa, right? If they're going after a pack of wildebeest, they're going after the weaker ones, like a calf or one that's a little slower, sort of like that. Same thing in this type of lobby. If the teams can identify, hey, this team is really just off their game and they're just losing all their 1v1s and all their team fights and everything, those are easy points that you might be able to, hey, you know, Falcons drops in Yaznaya, and they're, I mean, not Falcons is a bad example because they're doing really, really well, but let's say Vista Gaming, they're not doing well. We know where they go the X certain position. So we're going to drop here, collect up on, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 points maybe, and then just continue on our way because they're not going to put up much of a fight back.
Yeah, and I think particularly for Vista, it's an issue where you see them kind of hovering around that location of R8. So in the event, or likely event, that both R8 and Vista potentially qualify here, then you're looking towards that battle that could ensue out for 9 of those 15 matches, which for Vista is a lot of points, right? Because Vista need, ideally, in that Super Weekend more so, to look like the biggest fish of them all, to get kind of those 200-esque points this weekend that GEEKAY got last.
We saw the only one catching off a member of Twisted Minds off rotation. This is a spot that the only one is very comfortable in. They always come here, and that's something that these teams need to be, you know, at this point in the tournament, you should be able to identify that. You know, this team loves to come here. Twisted Mind loves to come to these barns after dropping in the farm area. So people in this lobby should be well aware where that first rotate, not just drop spots at the beginning, but also that first rotation, the circle. So they're able to say, you know, just by looking at a map where the circle is, this team likes to go here, this team likes to go here. We need to be careful of this angle. Maybe we had some bad experiences there before, and being able to upgrade their strategies and their positions based on that.
Ah, I see. The upgraded performance. I like it, Monica. I like it. I'm sensing the vibes. You know, it's like, you know, when you have those shades and you just tilt them down and you look at the person, you're like, I know that 4K IQ strat.
No, that one, but we're exposing everybody out here though. CONQUEROR. So CONQUEROR, they had a pretty great game relative to how they were performing the rest of the day, right? They got a second place, only 2 eliminations found. This is right in their backyard. It's kind of GACA or very purish area. So they should be doing better. I think they were just caught pretty off guard in the first 2 Erangel matches. As 90th minute, they're going to be taking up those little trench-ish areas outside of CONQUEROR and being like really a little bit too close for comfort.
Yeah, a lot of these teams as well, very focused on that more northern side of this second phase, now that being about more the Pachinki end and Pachinki Hill, just towards that kind of southwest. As you can see there, NIGMA kind of controlling that location, and a lot of teams around there too. It's really, I think, a lot of these teams, mainly for now, locked in a location. There could be a couple skirmishes initially. You see towards that northern end, RTG Falcons kind of encapsulating each other, but is that zone shifts very hard and towards that eastern end, very much going to be about that not only hillside of Pachinki that NIGMA control, but I think coming down towards that more eastern and that southeastern part of the coastal line, those cliffs going to be a valuable point to not only avoid potential fights, but to set up and catch out players rotating on those wider flanks.
This side of the circle, it does remind me a lot of Miramar. Lots of different elevations and layers that people are going to be stacking themselves onto, especially Potato Hill and these roads leading up into Pachinki from school area. We already seen Falcons who are doing so well for themselves today. A lot of great matches come out from them. Now taking up to the compound right next to Road to Glory, which is a team that hasn't really done much for themselves today.
Yeah, I think RTG have been a little stagnant in terms of their results.
Yeah.
And you can certainly see what has been, I would argue, a downward decline for RTG coming through the second week. It wasn't as great as the first Super Weekend for them, but at least they're making that consistency, right? And RTG, though I think they're gonna struggle here. I mean, J9 does seem to be caught out, will be knocked down in the midst of absolutely nowhere. Now Nabo and also Unknown, very split also. And it almost just feels like, even though Unknown gets this knockdown, VISTA now coming in as that third party because it has been such a long, extended fight with those sound cues out. Both of these teams, but mainly RTG, really just not gonna take any advantage in the long run of taking this fight.
Nabu throwing an 8 to the wayside, to the right, trying to find these last couple players into the compound. Playing a little Ring of Rosie action over here. Tries to go for the drop shot, but gets knocked into the distance. Powerful. He's going to clean up on this one. It's going to be Road to Glory down to only 2. We have Volt and Unknown just out into the distance. Nowhere near here at all, as they're now just going to be going for the circle, cutting their losses as a 2-man.
Right, and I mean, it was a nice idea. Volt was there on the side, but they could have tried to catch out a member of Falcons if they overpushed, but just couldn't get through the door in time, and as a result, RTG reduced down to 2 players. Falcons, I'm surprised, weren't oppressed harder by actually VISTA. I feel like VISTA had a real opportunity there in the midst of RTG's fight, where RTG were losing. Falcons were beginning to finish, but still weren't reset enough for a secondary fight. And I think that VISTA, as a result, now, yes, get a better position for themselves currently, but they're still very much towards the edge, where they could have actually used Falcon's location to dive deeper down south directly from there and have a much more centralized position.
That's definitely fair. Putting a little bit more priority on that circle, though, and someone else who's putting some high priority here is going to be POWR, trying to keep 90th minute still down the slopes. I mean, they're all stacked up one on top of each other. They all chose the same part of this hill to come up behind, and it's going to be, I mean, you see resources come out from either which direction, coming on the backhand side, just trading them all back and forth.
This is a difficult zone indeed, as 90th, they're getting blown up into smithereens, as all but one will survive for the meantime. Caliga taking out Jabal, that with the first elimination mark taken away. Caliga still Conqueror, being sneaky as ever, looking for his elimination points. POWR, they know they're there, and POWR, they're having to step back because it's this solo that is causing so many issues to try and finish off this specific angle into 90th.
Yeah, it's taking one of the players' attention, POWR, away from this, so they can't clearly clean up this fight against 90th minute, right? Because they have to keep one on the solo of Conqueror. Now, Conte, I mean, this is just too much to focus on as Oredo Thunder is rolling on past them, still allowing 90th minute now down below to go for the reset, but it's just so many people in this one area, and because of all this, Oredo Thunder, free rotation into the southern parts of the circle.
I mean, also 90th minute, literally just don't escape this position. It's just so impossible for them. They've locked themselves into a corner that they just cannot escape from. Conqueror also spraying in, and it's only Yazan to survive. Finds the hit marker, so knows it is roughly around the location where those final bullets landed. But is this shift into Pachinki, Monica, that is so dire for these teams? And you can see 4K making a huge rotation alongside so many of these other teams, but they just fall down. They're losing members, and Legend will be the first to drop.
Oh man, when we see these city finishes, just everyone just lobbing nades into the buildings right next to you because you might have an entire full team on that side. GEEKAY not quite committing into the city yet, staying by the sewers, but they've got Rad, one of the teams that actually has only gotten 2 points today in all of the matches, and they really need a big game here. But I mean, they're not long for this world behind this vehicle that is about to blow.
And they are one of these teams, Monica, that need those points in the overall standings. It is really need a better performance this week than what they're having in currently. It just seems to be that they're locking themselves in these positions where it makes it so difficult for a major part of the team to rotate in. Kaito, yes, they do the information work, but isn't there to actually punish OOREDOO from behind. So OOREDOO just have this free reign on the rest of these three members, whereas Kaito is just deciding to stay very still inside of their own current position, which, yes, can work for the moment, but if the rest of your team go down and get caught, suddenly you find Rad very early on.
OOREDOO Thunders, maybe they've found some invisibility cloaks to pull the hood over onto their heads because nobody is pressuring their position here. They've gotten the free rotations, free eliminations now. This time, one knockdown on Rad, but I mean, they've pigeonholed themselves to one little spot that they're all trying to hide behind. OOREDOO Thunders still with a little split across the roadside, able to keep their pressure on both GEEKAY and Rad at the exact same time.
And it's this little bit of a ridge that OOREDOO have. That's what protects them from all of those other teams in the main city compound. Al-Hahi down to about half HP. Power, it is not looking great for them. Outsiders triple looking for that final one. They did lose one themselves, so they are to that. I believe 2-man is clever, should be returned back up to from their knees.
That circle, though, it's going to find the very triangular corner of Pochinki. So a lot of hills or fields still in play. But, I mean, all the teams that are in the city are now converging on that little pinpoint side of Pochinki Twisted Minds. They're still going to be up in this plateau area. Came in from farm. They really haven't rotated that far at all. They don't really have anyone right in front of them to get in the circle, but there's not really a whole lot to play in right now. So with the city coming back into the circle coming back into the city, they're going to have to crash up somewhere or take up the spot away from Rad or from the only one.
Yeah, I don't think it's the hardest location that this zone could have gone to, but it certainly is one of the harder ones, considering that that field, as you say, is practically unplayable at this point, considering how many players can look over it. Al-Hahi stepping back onto NIGMA is NIGMA kind of readying themselves to rotate through, but it's a much more difficult position for Power. Al-Hahi is on their own, has no backup support. Enigma, they just have a whole powerhouse of these players around him. OOREDOO as well, trying to make that same rotation. Triple were doing the same, but will fall first. Power, they come full second, though, swiftly after.
What's kind of hilarious is every time NIGMA Galaxy leaves Pochinki, the circle ends up staying, coming back onto the city. So they you know, any other circle, they would come away or they would stay in Pochinki for it to shift off of the city. So every time they just lose their prime positioning right in the city, now have to play the hillside and taking up a fight against OOREDOO Thunders to try to ascend back within that urban environment. Smoker, though, finds just a couple of those shots through the smoke onto the likes of NIGMA.
Enigma, for the meantime, will keep themselves all alive. OOREDOO, it's a close fight, and you can see Osama's big nade on top. Will knock one, but that is not the time they want to be knocked. You can see NIGMA very, very late to the rotation. Raouf just gets exploded. Now Hamodi looking to be next, and it looks like it's double trouble for NIGMA, but will it be a whole squad wipe? Is there only one remaining? Lord will be confirmed by Rad on the back, and NIGMA just way too late, way too bold of an attempt.
And they wanted to go for that hillside, but it just came to bite them in the butt. And even Rad is still able to outlive NIGMA Gaming because of their just last-ditch effort, blind push back into the city, caught out by all the teams left into the lobby. Osama, though, through the little broken down windows of their exploded cars, trying to find any sort of ankle or inch of Rad that he can. They've got a couple casualties on their side, and they're trying to ascend now. No cover for OOREDOO Thunders, running out into the open.
And Osama down to one first aid. It's been a long fight, but Hassan gets an aid off right on target. Sends down Desha once more, right as they get back up again. Rex with the next to follow, and Rad very swiftly eliminated, but very excellently by OOREDOO. Unfortunately, everyone is also looking on this location. OOREDOO a bit too far forward. Will lose two instantaneously to GEEKAY. It is 2 versus 2 fight Hope, though, keeping themselves up, has a health advantage, but the nade will make that a difference. It's all down to Mohammed, the only one remaining. Hamko steps up, the nade will go wide, and Hamko will finish off the first. Now Mohammed sends out a second nade, though, but this one will only tickle to halfway.
Oh. It's just right into the defenses of Mohammed. GEEKAY just not sure how to defend himself now. If any of OOREDOO Thunder had any more grenades in hand, they could just lob it over the top to the open parts of the shack to find him. But GEEKAY, I mean, he's holding on for dear life. The only one looking to clear out Twisted Minds and taking up the Wizard Tower out in the field. They're the only team still that has to come in to the city apart from GEEKAY and OOREDOO Thunder.
But it was a big clutch, a lot of loot boxes there, so Alou should have some form of healing potentially there to survive. Actually, no, we don't. We only have 10 bandages. That is not what I expected. And that health ain't looking too perky either. Still Alou sends out all the smokes.
Some first aids.
I mean, they've got a smoke raid, right? Yeah. Like, they've got the smoke road there. They can maybe get to the shack. That's really what they're looking for, right? But it's a long road. I mean, the Sama Hamko are all over it.
Long road with sparse foliage for some health. I mean, he was hoping for a first aid in the crate there, but of course, luck is never on his side. Just rolling on in OOREDOO Thunders. If it's not the blue zone to take out Alou, it's going to be OOREDOO Thunders.
Still a very, very close game here between all of these teams. Is Pachinki is going to be now the center of attention. NASR, YALLA, finishing off the stragglers as OOREDOO and also Decide of Rat will both succumb to the bullets. Falcons coming in from the edge is one of those last teams to enter in, is VISTA very much needing those points. And it's really up to, I think, VISTA here is the only team alongside Falcons once more that need to get a good result here. But there's still 4 teams remaining.
Falcons, they won the previous Erangel match 2 matches ago before Miramar, right? And they're really setting themselves up well. 2 eliminations found so far. Not quite the most action game for them. They still have their rooftop just on the northern side. I don't believe anyone is in the circle at all, as NASR is, I mean, I think they have one, Humam, you know, he's just right there. But Falcons, they do have the trenches from down below, so they can play a little bit under some of these teams. But, I mean, we are looking right now, these, like YALLA, right, the furthest to come out, and they still need to cross the road to try to attempt to get in.
VISTA still gonna be outside this zone. The only player inside that zone right now is a solo for the side of NASR, and they're the only ones with a full squad, so have clear advantages here in this game. They just won the last one. They got second in the 3rd game, and it don't look like YALLA at least are gonna survive for much longer because NASR, they are on top of those eliminations, and Saif will be no more.
I love that Falcons is staying on this kind of clear sky. Oh, way on over here, we have, I mean, everyone still in the city. They're going to have to fight tooth and nail across themselves. And the Falcons just waiting nice and pretty, waiting for all the action to come to them. As YALLA, I mean, they have the smokes across, but it's not any sort of solid cover as NASR is encroaching on. And it's going to be fight through the smokes, gets the knock on down. It's going to be 1 left alive. YALLA coming on the back hills as he goes for the drop shot and finally takes him out.
Barely gets them with the nade, but look at VISTA. They're waking up. They're awaking to fire, and the ashes of YALLA as NASR will just burn down to the solo player. VISTA, Dino, Sunrise. We're opening the curtains to what could be a potential chicken dinner for themselves. The Falcons, they still have 3 players on the edge here, Monica, and they have the zone. It's gone up towards them.
Rising like a phoenix through the flames is going to be VISTA Gaming, having such a poor performance all day today, and this is the best game that they have had yet. 3rd place at least, and 2 players still on up. NASR, though, they don't know who to pay attention to because it's VISTA on one side and Falcons coming down on the other.
VISTA, they're making the nades work. They've got only a few left, I imagine. NASR's even coupling up, and they're making it a 3-on-3 warfare, and Yusuf don't like it. Hammam will not like it at all, as Never Alone sends one back up top. Now, down to our final 2. VISTA at least have secured themselves the 12 points, but they're looking for the chicken dinner. That one goes a bit wide. Never alone. Looking for the next, but it will go in between the middle of the Falcons members. In for now, as they run out of utilities, Falcons will just very happily hold on to this dip, hold on to the gutter, because they know that VISTA have to come to them.
Falcons are so spread out. They have all the control in the world as VISTA. I mean, they're just they don't have any information of what was going on here, right? Because they had an entire team right in front of them, NASR, that they couldn't see over them. So they don't know where Falcons is at. They can see kind of the trajectory of where some of these grenades are coming out, but they have no idea right now. So they're running in blind. They're trying to collect on their information now, whereas Falcons, they know exactly what building, exactly what corner that VISTA is hiding into, and it's just a matter of time as the blue zone is starting to close in now, and VISTA Gaming is needing to get into the circle.
Exactly. Is here as well. Falcons and VISTA losing out one onto VISTA side. Falcons realistically looking like they're going to win this game, Monica, and it's all down to them here. It's to finish it off. To finish off their chicken dinner for what has been a dominant Falcons day so far.
I was beside me just waiting up there and just trying to stay away, but I think the utility, they still got some on left, and Falcons, they're greedy for this last elimination.
Falcons looking for it, looking for the victory lap. Monica, they're searching, but I think VISTA, they're going to give away the points, maybe.
Okay, so he's just waiting on here, counting on the seconds. Can he go for the med game though? But Falcons, they have it. He's running on up. The blue zone does take him out, but I think the blue zone, it was just the ultimate squad wiper, and the Falcons are going to get the last chicken dinner of the day.
Falcons, they had a great day so far. And, you know, what better way to celebrate than, of course, you know, a little fox on the side of your screen as well. Yeah. I mean, I like look a bit weird because I've got to like hold it because I'm scared he's gonna fall, you know. I've got to like protect the animals. I don't know if like I should have like a high shoulder. I mean, you'll see it on camera. I don't know. I should have a high shoulder like this. I'm like, sure it doesn't fall.
Right here.
Or like if I like put like this down, but then I'm like falling off the screen. So
but then your neck is gonna like
I know
break
exactly.
That way, right?
I know. I'm concerned about my neck issues right now. Like, exactly. I mean, okay. So the producer Andre said like if I do a crazy shoulder. So if I just look like this for the rest of the entire thing as we go. Oh no, it's drops. Like... Oh, it's difficult. It's difficult worlds.
So Falcons, they didn't need a mascot themselves because they already got one, right? But I think VISTA was the one that manifested your little bit of what is it, mascot energy, and they came in a second.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, right? Look, mascot, no mascot. Falcons, they've looked absolutely dominant all day. As we check out those match rankings one more time to see exactly where Falcons ended up in that game. 20 points for them so far, 19 for NASR though, and YALLA picking up that rear on what was, I think, still a good capitalization, 9 eliminations for them. But you definitely have to look at those 3 teams in the middle though, Monica. VISTA are the only one who, as we said, they are the 3 out of all of these teams that are needing those points. Okay, Falcons to be fair as well, but those 3 down below, we'll leave Falcons for now. But the rest of those 3 in the middle, certainly, I think a big pickup. And I think a big pickup, particularly for VISTA, for OOREDOO, and the only one, especially because those 3, unlike Falcons, haven't had that dominant streak throughout the entire day. They've needed these extra final points this game.
I think we're seeing at this high level, everyone can shoot, right? Everyone can hit those shots, everyone can, you know, take the team fights, but it's those teams with that just little extra ledge that can get those eliminations, like YALLA, like Major Pride, that we know have that fragging power. And today, I mean, the theme of YALLA today has just been fight, 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 right? It's just fight after another, engagement after another, and just collecting on those eliminations. So despite only finishing in, what, 4th, they're still able to jump up into 3rd in points.
Yep. So I found out a way. I'm going to look like a bit of a kangaroo here, but we've got the fox safe now. So the fox is okay. It's okay, Monica. We found a solution. It's temporary, it's robust, but it's successful. As we check out the next page here, going into our final page for the standings here of Twisted Minds in 9th position. 90th minute, down in around that 16th position, though. Unfortunately, I think 90th minute, Monica, kind of have struggles so far through the last parts of today. They've sort of had their highs, they've sort of had positions overall. But I think similar to that of Road to Glory and Triple down at the bottom, they just struggled, I think, to realistically get a good position overall.
90th minute is just, man, they started this game overall in about 10th position, right? Just, I mean, just middle of the crowd, but towards the end of the middle of the crowd. So it's like, they're getting a little bit dicey because we just finished day 1, right? We have one more day tomorrow, but that's all, again, it's only 4 matches. So the results of day 1 really set up the tone and the aggressiveness and passiveness of all the teams in lobby in day 2.
Look, it's the overall standings so it matter at the end of the day here, Monica, and it matters down to the teams at the top. Of course, NASR taking the crown for now, as Falcons will succumb to that 2nd position. YALLA also getting up to the top 3. In SKYROCKET, you can see the difference in just that one game alone, now down to 4th position here.
Remember, we had SKYROCKET before this match tied in 1st place with NASR with 49 points, but of course they had one entire match ahead of all the teams here at the top. So now that they've caught up on those match numbers, everyone here has played 4 matches now. We're seeing here that NASR, Team Falcons, YALLA have climbed on up, and look at Falcons 2 chicken dinners, yet still 4 points below NASR.
Exactly, and I think that's what we're really looking at realistically here for as well. Some of these teams, like, of course, as you said, NASR, very close, but also I think the only one having a good performance there. I think to a similar extent, Major Pride also there joining up in that 7th position, but it's, as we say, those teams that need those points. It's those teams that need a super weekend to realistically qualify for the finals. Those are the teams that we're keeping a kind of magnifying glasses out to try to check out where they are in the overall standings. Is, of course, a lot of them, though, still to get up off this 2nd page here, Monica.
All right. So remind me last week and the week before, what was the point cutoff? I want to say it was 35-ish, somewhere in there for that super weekend. Somewhere around there, right?
Yeah, it's about 35, about 40 points. It kind of varies, right, between each week. I mean, I think the highest these teams have realistically needed has been around that 45-point mark. I'm not seeing something higher. I would say about
the 2nd
45
week it
points
jumped
is
up.
safe.
The 1st week was like 30-some, and the 2nd week it definitely jumped up. I think everyone is feeling a lot more pressure, getting a lot more of the points, and of course that meant the ones that didn't qualify ended up falling way, way below. So here we, if we cut it out now, this is your top 16 that made it to Super Weekend. Of course, we still have tomorrow, and these ones really, I would say, kind of 12th all the way down to 16th. They really are feeling the pressure.
Right, and I think especially those final teams, of course, down in that 16th spot, POWR, R8, certainly, I think, going to be nervous. I think for POWR more so, R8 are kind of okay because they've got the points under their belt, but certainly the idea of missing the opportunity, of course, Monica, for $15,000 in those super weekend chicken dinners, that's what also plays through these teams' minds.
Yeah. They need to play for the chicken dinners in the super weekend, right? Getting the $1,000 cash prize per win. Let's look at the last half, right? These are the teams that are really in the red, that are really need to turn some things around if they want to do better tomorrow.
Yeah, right. 4K, Kurds, Triple, Raz, all in the red zone for getting kicked out, essentially, not just of the super weekend to some, but of the tournament as a whole, because you look at the likes of more so Kurd 12 here, they're not even in the top 16 of the Super Weekend, Monica. So they need to pick something up. Otherwise, they do face elimination.
Yeah, if Kurd 12 doesn't make this Super Weekend, it's over for them, right? They're already not in top 16. They need to get way, way higher. But Rad, 4 points in 4 matches, that's not very good at all.
Right. But you now don't need points. What you need is prizes. And what better way than the Grizzly Gear card collection one more time? We've got 2 more days, so Monica, for it. And you can join a card collection and win outfits. There's a chance to get all the pieces of an item in one go. I mean, as always, I am a true believer, I must admit, of the bear suit of the hats. I feel like if you just gave me those moniker and then I give you like the rest of the 4, is that like an
Yeah.
even trade?
I think maybe, but you're definitely gonna need some of the outfit to hold your little fox in place, right? It can be like grizzly bear and then fox right next to each other to really just intimidate everybody in the lobby.
Like, I mean, whatever it is, whether you got a mascot, whether you got energy, whether you've got the hype to go, because we will be here same time, same place tomorrow for all the same action. Myself and Imperium joining on the desk. We'll see you then.
I need you to get up. Get up.
Icy boy with diamonds on my frozen soul.